I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Chesterfield Regular Township Board meeting for Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. to order. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Berry, would you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Demink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here.
Item 4, approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Supported by Supervisor Kersten. Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 5, presentations. There are no presentations scheduled tonight. Item 6, department reports. And we'll start with Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. First thing, the Historical Society, Chesterfield Township Historical Society, you can access it at www.chesterfieldhistoricalsociety.org, all lowercase. There's 5 events planned for this year, 6 including the winter one, and you can sponsor those. And I'll let you go there to that site to see what they are. The other item, I will kind of address some of our what occurred during our April 3rd Public Safety Advisory Committee meeting. Our dispatch at the police station there is just about ready to go here within a week or two. The rest of the renovations there. There's 2 part-time firefighters that are started on March 21st. They've been established to put on one of the shifts. 4 cadets in the police academy, 2 at Macomb and 2 in Oakland, are graduating in May. 2 of our sergeants are attending the staff and command and will graduate in May. Re-accreditation, Trustee Joseph will let you cover that. We also discussed our Supran aerial fire truck purchase, which is now at one of our stations. And last thing, the DEA Drug Take-Back Day at the Police Department is on Saturday, April 27th from 10 to 2 p.m. at the police station. If you have any expired narcotics and that, you can drop them off there. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just to add on, the other topic that we covered during our Public Safety Advisory Committee was the accreditation process is, well, it has been underway, but the Township Police Department became an accredited department several years ago, and part of that commitment is the basically an audit, a reaccreditation review, and that is done by the chiefs from various departments around the state. It is by all a peer review. There are a number, literally hundreds of areas. I think the most significant for me, and maybe hopefully for the residents, is when you are an accredited department, you're basically making a commitment to adopt best practices in all areas of police work. And the one that we find and see on the news quite a bit is use of force, issues involving officers and force, or officers and high-speed pursuits, things like that. They tend to create the most problems for departments across the region and really across the country. The commitment to the accreditation process ensures that RPD is working cooperatively with the Department of Justice and federal guidelines to take a look at how we provide police protection, and do we adopt best practices. The commitment is not only to just get the certification that we're accredited, but also to commit to the training that's necessary for the staff involved. So we see a number of innovative ideas that have taken place with the board support, specifically training exercises that are capable inside the department. Our officers are routinely, part of their job is a commitment to training and committing to best practices. So the reaccreditation process involves assessors coming in and reviewing all of our policies and procedures. The official reaccreditation update is on April 24th, but I understand as a result of our meeting, our police department administrative team have already turned over all of the accreditation documentation to the assessors who are currently reviewing it, and we have very good feedback in terms of our continued green light in terms of the accreditation. So very, very proud of the department, and I know Director Bassett was very kind in pointing out that his administrative team has been really working hard to ensure that we have a successful reaccreditation. So just wanted to update the board and residents on that specific piece because it's really a big deal. Also, our fire department is undergoing a similar process, and they are is equally as committed to instituting best practices. So it's a very good move and money well spent by our taxpayers in terms of the public safety SAD. We have a top-notch department. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Chesterfield Township Election Commission will be meeting this Thursday. Their agenda is available online, as well as all of the township and other commission meeting agendas. On this agenda for Thursday will be the appointment of election inspectors, receiving boards, chairman, co-chairman for the upcoming May election. In addition to that, also the approval of an absentee voter counting board, as well as their schedule, and the early processing and tabulation of absentee voter ballots, which we are now allowed to do by law. That is not early voting. That is simply processing absentee ballots that have already been received. We have the authority by the state now to be able to process those early, which allows us to manage election day a little bit better. That is on the agenda, as well as setting the public accuracy test. All material, equipment that is used in conducting an election, before every election, it is publicly tested for the public to view to make sure that all of the machines are working properly and that there are no results stored in those machines from previous elections. As I've shared previously with you, the machines themselves do not store any election information at all. That is all done on a media stick that is kept under lock and key until election day. So, but nonetheless, to see that everything is functioning properly, that is available to the public. That date is tentatively to be set for April the 16th, but that will not be for sure until the Election Commission adopts that date at their meeting on Thursday, so that is subject to change. But please be aware that all of the Election Commission meetings, as well as all of the testing of equipment and machinery, is open to the public. The public is welcome to attend. Thank you.
Just 3 items for the public's interest. Today we kicked off our first meeting with the Gratiot resurfacing project scheduled for 2025 with the MDOT, Department of Roads, State of Michigan. Also Macomb County Department of Roads. SMART was a participant, DT, and any other stakeholder along that had something to do or has something to do with Gratiot from Mount Clemens or Hall Road for the township north all the way to 23 Mile Road. That project right now is slated for 2025. It's an all-encompassing project, but the focus for MDOT is a simple 2-inch mill and fill, they call it. The project's about $7.9 million, and again, it's supposed to kick off in the spring of 2025. We've met with these groups and we'll continue to meet with them, just make sure that the community is represented, and particularly with SMART and pedestrian crossings and right-of-ways. We also received notice last week that the 23 Mile Road reconstruction from Gratiot to the railroad tracks is scheduled to begin in May. You'll see equipment from the state of Michigan and the Department of Roads, their contractors, appear. We're trying to work with them to come up with an alternative plan to relieve traffic, particularly as it relates to any subdivisions or side roads. And finally, the FEMA Disaster Resource Center, which is currently staffed and open at Fire Station 3 at 23 and Baker. We were notified today that that will close at the end of day tomorrow, April 10th, Applications will still be accepted online through the FEMA portal, which we will continue to post on our media pages. And just some quick numbers so far, there were roughly 8,500 claims filed in the declaration area, nearly 12 million in assistance funds approved, and we will try and communicate with them and release back to the board here and the public is what that data reflects for Chesterfield Township and the impact that it created. So with that being said, we'll move on to item 7, public comments. Public comments on agenda items only. There's a 3-minute time limit. If you would state your name, you're not required to, just so we can keep track of it. Comments should be made on agenda items only. The floor is open.
I want to start with something I saw on the bill run that's a little disturbing. There's a charge on here for $6,200 and some cents, I don't have my glasses, to renew the software for e-commerce. Now, e-commerce is the old system we used for accounting for everything that went through the system here. And it was supposed to be vacated and outdated and replaced by the BS&A software that you paid, what, $350,000, $300,000 for? And why is this being used? Doesn't make any sense. That BS&A software tracks everything. Once you start punching it in, it tracks everything, puts the labor where it belongs, assigns where it's supposed to be taken from, everything else. This e-commerce, all this does is allow the people that use it, and I think it's mainly Josh's people, to get in there and take money out of whatever account they can get at, mainly the water department. That's why a lot of funds that I've been asking, why are we missing a couple $1 million a year from the water fund? Obviously, that's where it's been going, among other places. And why is it even on here? It should be coming for the board for authorization. It's over $5,000. I don't know, well, you know, do people even look at this bill run? The other thing I wanted to talk about is the project you got going to rehab the Mink pump station. Finally doing something in the area after months and months of not admitting that there was anything wrong with it that caused the flooding on Jefferson and all of the streets adjacent to Jefferson. I'm glad that's happening. Is it going to stop there? Because they also should be looking at the pump stations along Jefferson. I put it in the paper what should be done. Well, there's about $500,000 each for those remaining 2 stations. The only thing I've seen done there, I've seen your truck out there pulling 1 or 2 pumps out of them. There's 4 pumps and everything, and they're old enough. You ought to go through the whole control system, the pumps, add a generator, and everything else. These fail, and we're going to have the same thing we had back in August. At least finally you're admitted something. But it concerns me that all of this money is finally being spent and there's no reserve that you're taking it from. You spend it on the school. You could have used that ARPA money, like a lot of people that came to that meeting said, put it into the infrastructure. You ignored that, you bought the school, and now we're putting money into the infrastructure.
Thank you, sir.
John, Speaker of Chesterfield Township. We have people in power in Chesterfield that want to control everything. The newspaper, The Voice, all township web pages, and the township board meetings with the 3-minute time limit. This, again, is a fascist regime, and Brad is a dictator, with 3 enablers Treasurer Elliott, Trustee Vosberg, and Trustee Demink. On the bill run, this should be an automatic no, and the bill run should be pulled for discussion. Let me give you an example. Department 265, Facilities and Operations, entry number ledger 101-265-801, dated 3/27/24, invoice date, e-maintenance software, 598246. Then there's another one for Sewer and Water, Department 441, ledger number 591-441-801, for e-maintenance work order for software 815793. In the purchasing policy, anything over $5,000 has to come to the board for approval. I know the treasurer and the supervisor, Trustee Vosberg, have issues with basic math issues. Nothing is supposed to be split. This is the same invoice, 60948. Somebody did a split. I'm sure that someone did a split, and that is an absolute no-no. Why is Stephanie, Josh assistant, using e-maintenance when they should be using BSA software? Supervisor Kersten spent a whopping of our money, $350,000. They're not using it. $350,000 of your money and my money, of tax dollars, and they're not using it. If you use B&A software, it's an integrated system. It starts with the budget. The key word is the budget. The budget keeps a general ledger number, so when you write a work order or a purchase order, all of the BSA, if there is no money in that general ledger, then you don't go any further unless, guess what? You got to amend the budget. That is why they are not using BS&A and using e-maintenance. I hope you people and residents are picking up what I'm laying down. So again, I'm saying, why did we pay $350,000 for software and we're using e-maintenance? Why are we being inefficient with the two software products? When Kersten was appointed, he promoted technology and best practices. Well, I'm in the private sector. This is not best practices. This is being deceitful and dishonest to the residents, and it's our money, our tax money that they're stealing.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Janice Young. To item 10A, the Sidewalk Replacement Program. I don't have a copy of this year's replacement program because I'm not in Zone 4. I was in Zone 3 last year. But that notice did have a couple things in there I wanted to point out. The removal of defective sections of sidewalk sometimes result in the need for additional work. When removing sidewalk sections, adjoining sections can break or crumble, resulting in additional costs. The final assessed amount will be based on a measurement of the concrete sidewalk actually replaced and may vary from the estimated amount indicated above. The township reserves the right to increase or decrease the total quantities as they see fit. First of all, I'd like to see the contractor be held accountable for any damage to adjoining slabs that if they in fact damage them. I've heard quite a few residents indicate that this has happened in previous 3 zones. If I hired a contractor to do work at my home and they damaged something, I would hold them accountable. Why would we not do that in this case? Also, in last year's letter was the Chesterfield Township's construction standards for sidewalk construction. In item 1, it states, the subgrade shall be well drained and cleaned of all sod and organic material. Last summer, when the sidewalks were done in Stonehenge, where I live, there was a significant rainfall, and all the formed areas were full of water the day they came and poured the concrete. So if the contractor not held to our construction standards, why not? I mean, anybody else would have to be held to the standards. Item 10B in the agenda tonight refers to the contractor as the lowest responsible bidder, which is kind of a cute little way to identify them. What defines them as responsible if they can't follow our sidewalk construction standards? And I did take a walk through my subdivision this weekend, and I noticed on Stratford and Sherlock, there's a corner slab that is probably like this deep. I don't know how that got missed when they did slabs all down Stratford. And there's one that is actually crumbling. It looks like there was maybe an air pocket in the concrete, and there's now a hole that is just crumbling where in the new concrete. So I want to know if they're going to be held accountable for that, and what's in place for the residents that have had the work done and those coming up to ensure that this contractor is in fact going to do quality work for them and stand behind whatever that they do. Let's see. Oh, and then this may have been asked before, but I personally had all my concrete mud jacked because it saved all my concrete. My concrete was not bad. It was just ponding and holding water in areas, some by my house, some on the sidewalk. So I had my whole house done, which cost me a lot of money, but it was an investment over concrete. So I want to know why residents aren't being offered mud jacking through this contractor, or maybe they don't do it, but there are contractors that do it. So I just think that would be a cost savings to the residents, and it should be an option for them. Thank you.
Christopher Perrick, Chesterfield Township. I just want to speak on all the agenda items at once. I did look at, started looking at some of the packets that were included when the agenda came out online. And I just want to thank you in advance for voting on these with education behind each one of them. I trust that everybody that's going to vote on these items, especially item F, went through all pages, including 1,300 plus pages on item F. So you're well educated on that before you cast your vote, because that's the way it should be, educated votes. Thank you.
Any further comments? Any further comment?
Thank you. The issue of our sidewalk that was noted in the letter we received, we accept that that work needs to be done. However, our grievance with it is the short amount of time we were given to take action on this item. We received this letter on March 5th, and we're given 90 days to fix our sidewalk. We feel, according to the picture that was given in our notice, there's leaves on the ground. So this picture was taken last fall. We could have received this letter 3 months ago, giving us more time to address the issue or at least plan for it. So again, timeliness would have been better. We're reaching out to a private contractor to have the work done, no problem there. But we would just like to, ask the township for a little bit more consideration when you send out these types of things to the taxpayers. I live on D.W. Seaton for the last 18 years, and in that amount of time, nobody has come to address our road. From 23 to 24 mile, it's like a moonscape. We have a concrete road surface, but the road crew comes out and they put blacktop into holes. It lasts maybe a month, and then those same potholes grow bigger and bigger. So if we're expected to address the issue of our sidewalk, we would expect that the township should take a little bit more care with our primary roads. Thank you.
Kevin Hustick, just two quick things. With the sidewalk program, I was just curious when the program for the particular district is completed, if residents that are not in that district have the option to purchase off that cooperative price, like if they had some sidewalk squares in front of their house. I know I've seen some municipalities do that before where because you get such a good economy of scale price, I didn't know if there's an option, and you may not know the answer, or maybe it's a flat out no. I was just curious. I need to have some concrete work done, and it's a private sidewalk, but before I quote it out, the township does get a really good price, so I wanted to see if that was an option. And then the other question that I had regarding the bill run was just more for clarity's sake. I'm trying to understand, so that e-maintenance software, and forgive me because I've only been in Chesterfield a couple of years, the BS&A, and this is just more for my own sanity, from what I understood, the BS&A was more for the budgeting and the property assessments, et cetera, and the e-maintenance looks like it's more of a work order system and a system for preventative maintenance. So I was just curious, and I guess if the item does get pulled out for discussion, I'm just curious to know if there is a difference or if it is a redundant system. Because a quick search online, to me, it looks like it has a different function, but I'm just curious to know. And then it looks like, since this is just a yearly renewal, I'm just curious to know if it was a multi-year contract. Again, this may have happened historically prior to me being here, but I'm just curious to know, because as it was mentioned, it is over the dollar threshold if there's stacking costs, but if this is something that was already agreed upon a long time ago, I was just curious if that's just a renewal of an existing approved contract. So that's all. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further comments from the public? Any further comments? Item 8, consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 26th, 2024. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Is there a motion to approve the consent?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item B, payment of bills for separate consideration.
Motion by Trustee Joseph to
Support.
approve with the removal of item B. Is there support? Trustee Anderson?
Support.
We will make item B in regular agenda, under item 10. Is that acceptable?
Sure. Yeah.
Any further questions? Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee DeMink?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott? Aye. Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9, public hearing.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing of necessity for the 2023 Sidewalk Replacement Program, Zone 4.
Motion made by Clerk Berry to open the public hearing.
Support.
Supported by Trustee DeMink. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee DeMink?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott? Aye. Supervisor Kersten?
Aye. Public hearing is open at 7:28.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. Under the public hearing, my issue with the sidewalk program is, and it's been since day one, the 25% engineering fee that the residents pay to Spalding Detector. So if you look at this, it looks like the total cost for this project that's going to go to Spalding Detector is going to be $319,240, and that's just for this zone. So I objected to it then. I'm objecting to it now. We've got an engineer on staff, and sidewalking and planning it out with the thickness and the way the concrete should be poured is not a difficult process. A basic engineer could handle that. So this was ridiculous that this was even sent out to Spalding Detector. It should have been handled in-house by our engineer. That's what he got hired to do when he got hired for the township. And the whole purpose was to save the township money. This is not saving the taxpayers money. Again, they're getting soaked with the 25% fee for every slab. It's ridiculous. I mean, in the private sector, you'd be fired for this. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. And another thing that I'm going to add to it is I'm going to ask that Supervisor Kersten and Treasurer Elliott recuse themselves on this vote because of the donations that have gone to your campaigns from Spalding to Dector. It's a conflict of interest. So I'm asking both of you to do the right thing and recuse yourself. Now, I don't know if you can do the right thing because I haven't seen it yet, but as a concerned resident and advocate and a hawk, I'm going to ask you again to recuse yourself from this vote. So you can't take money on your campaigns and then vote for something that comes up. So it's a conflict of interest. So, and again, I would be okay with the sidewalk program with the 25% fee taken out so the residents stop getting soaked on this. And our engineer, again, should be handling this, and it should have never went to Spalding to Dector. To me, and it's just my opinion, it's a pay-to-play. Thank you.
Further comments on the public hearing? Any further comments on the public hearing? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to close the public hearing, seeing no further comments. Support. Supported by Trustee Joseph. Clerk Berry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Public hearing closed at 7:31. Item 10 would be 8B, first item, the bill run. Clerk Berry?
Item B is the approval of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Discussion from the board. I'm sorry. Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve the bill run. Is there a second? Support. Trustee Vosberg, comments from the board. Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick ones. When I have issues with the bill run, rather than, elongate the meeting, I typically just vote no. But on this particular, I thought it would be maybe transparent, and let's talk about the expenditure that keeps coming up with regard to e-commerce and the BS&A. There were a couple of very good questions that were posed, and when we approved the $350,000 roughly expenditure for BS&A, we were told that it would do a lot of the things that I'm not understanding, and I don't know if this is in the Treasurer's Department, or who can best speak on the e-commerce expenditure, but it does exceed our purchasing policy, and I'm curious to know why we don't get an update on the use of this particular software. Additionally, with the BS&A, I recall when we had the initial debate, there was a tremendous amount of training that needed to take place, and BS&A is in their marketing and in their pitch to us, prides themselves on the training opportunities that they afford. They will come to the site, and they have, in essence, classrooms to train staff. But we do continue to have problems with trying to get, if there's a project, the BS&A software was designed to kind of itemize all of the expenses associated, yet it's still very difficult. So my question, why the duplication? I know that they are not the same, but there's tremendous overlap. And why haven't we migrated to BS&A? And what is the stacking of the e-commerce assigned to different departments when it's one invoice, and the purchasing policy as it relates to that expenditure? And if anybody who can answer that, I'd appreciate it.
I'll
Thank you.
speak to it. One of the residents spoke to exactly what it is. We're in the process of migrating over to BSNA. There are some technical issues that we don't like about the e-maintenance. There are some technical issues and operational functionality that we don't like with BSNA. As I said in the beginning, this is a 5-year plan. It's going to take us some time to migrate over to BSNA in totality into a format which we like. We are currently utilizing both systems. In fact, we've had meetings over the last month about corrections and fixes that we would like to have. I believe this is an extended contract. We're under a service agreement with the current user, and our hope is to eliminate that system once we move forward. There's a lot that goes into this. It's not something you just pull the plug on and walk away from. There's some integration processes, and we're in the midst of doing that. Did that answer?
Yeah, yes, it did, and I was wondering, is there any kind of update that maybe could come to the board with the level of implementation that we are at with BSNA in terms of, you know, what staff have been trained, where the shortcomings are, so forth, like whoever is responsible for, I'm assuming there's somebody in the township that is looking after the training and so forth of the department heads and the staff. Could the board maybe get an update on where we're at in the implementation
Absolutely.
process? Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll schedule that. I'll
Thank
speak to it right now myself. We're about 65% there in my own assessment of it. There are some bumps in the road, as with any technology that we bring in, and we're working through them. This overall is the proper direction and right direction to go. It integrates well with not only our community but the county, and we'll continue to build on it. But we'll get an update and an actual technical advisor to speak to where we're at on it and what our problems are and what our wins are with it. Thank you. Treasurer Elliott.
So the proper person on the invoices would be the finance director, if you have questions on the e-maintenance invoice. And then the other piece is, I do want to say that Clinton Township is also going to the cloud, and they were here training with us, so, recently. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on item? A motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosper, to approve item 8B. Clerk Barry?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink. Aye. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry. Aye.
Item 10A, the regular agenda.
Item 10A is to approve a request by the Engineering Department to adopt Resolution Number 2024-07, confirming the necessity for the 2024 Sidewalk Replacement Program Zone 4.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg? Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks for having us. As you know, the public hearing and the finding of necessity are both required by state law. They also follow our adopted program guide within the township that spells out exactly how we handle these programs each year. This is the 2024 program. It's going to be in Zone 4. Some important dates to remember. I think as one gentleman pointed out, that letters did go out on March 5th, notifying them of this program. It also walks through all the steps of the program, what the defects were, who to contact. It also walks through the standards. I think someone did note mud jacking. That is included on page 6, number 13. And March 6th, notice went out to the paper, so there was also a public notice. There are postcards that go out each year, so I know someone noted that there were pictures taken in the fall. We came to the board, I think it's September, to get the program approved to move forward and go into assessments. We went through those assessments in October and November and sent out those postcards, letting them know that we're going to continue with the program, but if you want information on your exact flag, we can give you that, and here's the email address to do that, and that went out in December. From today, they have May 9th will be the date that they have to let us know they're going to repair it on their own, otherwise it'll move forward with our contractor, and then June 8th is the day they have to have it constructed.
Can you speak to the mudjacking, raising?
Yeah, so mudjacking is not something that the township addresses with their contractor because it is a specialty contractor and we are going for that economy of scale of removal and replacement. We do allow them to get their own contractor to do that, and that is stated in the letter just to let them know that's a possibility, but that's just not something that we're going to address because of the economy of scale.
And real quick, one of the questions was the contractor doing over and above what the our contract allows for. Can you address that?
Yeah, so no, we've had a number of contractors who've broken flags throughout the program. Most of them have had to pay for those flags. There's a handful of times when the sidewalk flag adjacent to one you're removing does disintegrate. That's not something that the contractor could have anticipated, and that's not a contractor equipment issue. That's just a failure that's not noted at the surface. That's much more rare than when a contractor hits a slab with their piece of equipment, and we do have them replace that on their dime.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. You covered a bunch of them. The question about the pouring of Zone 3, I'm actually in the same sub as one of the residents, and my slab, I had three pieces in front of my house. They were formed. There was the base, and then the base was kind of tamped down, I guess. I don't know the process, but like there was some sand and it was tamped down. We got the torrential rains, and my slab was like, well, my yard was underwater, so the slab was, and the sand was like, you could see the river, going down into the driveway. So the base was kind of washed out. I left for work. The slab was filled with water. I came home. There was cement. It was poured and broomed. My neighbor came over and said, "Yeah, they just poured, like they pumped out the water and they just poured it. There was no." I said, "Any additional base?" "No, just right on top." So I don't know how long that lasts, but I think you heard evidence of people just walking the neighborhood and seeing freshly poured. What's the remediation process for that? And is there one? Does the resident contact the township? Do they contact you? What would be the format for addressing that?
Yeah, no, I think if you have a defective slab after the fact, you go back out there and you've got premature cracking, premature failure, then you definitely want to reach out to the Sidewalk's email address. We still have a 1-year, worker and maintenance guarantee bond that we can go back to the contractor and ask them to replace that. So we do have somewhat of a warranty on the program. The sooner we know about that, the sooner we can flag it and make sure they come back and remove and replace that.
Great. And then my last question was, one of the residents that got up during a public hearing, or maybe it was public comments, talked about the notification letter that he received on March 5th. Is there a way that when you send out the postcard, like letting residents know that this is coming in your zone and so forth, could maybe elaborate a bit on the work that needs to be done on that particular property? Because we've had this. I won't regurgitate all of my concerns, but the one that is particularly troubling for a resident is the likelihood of getting a contractor in March for a pour of maybe 3 or 4 slabs. Most contractors, they're booked already, and you might get them to come out for like a big driveway or a lot of flat work, but just to pour a couple of slabs, the likelihood of getting somebody out in time, and it creates a very short window. And as we go through, we've committed to Zone 7. I was wondering, is there a way to get that timeline such that residents could, begin the process of investigating contractors for the spring before, March 5th?
Sure, I'll address your first concern. We did take that into account when we sent out this year's letter. This year's letter actually included photos of all of the defects for every homeowner. So they got that in addition to, you can reach out to this email address and we'll walk you through everything. That way you don't have to email it. You got it right in your packet. As far as getting them information earlier, that's why we try to send those postcards out to get folks ahead of time. It's still December. It's still outside of trying to assess these a year in advance, which is tough too, because you got settlement and movement that happens throughout the winter. So we're trying to, get as close to the line as possible on that. But that's why we give them 30 days of notice to this, 30 days to let us know, and another 30 days. So we've got 90 days, and I know I've talked to a few. If it's tight and you're going to be a couple weeks after that, just let us know. We'll work with you. Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10B.
Supervisor Kersten.
Yeah.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
I missaid that. It was 10A.
That's okay. We're on time.
Item 10B.
Item 10B is to approve a recommendation by the Engineering Department to award the contract to Luigi Ferdinandi and Sons, I should get that right because I'm Italian, to award the contract to Luigi Ferdinandi and Sons as the lowest responsible bidder in the amount of $255,392 for the number 5 rated sidewalks in Zone 4 of the Sidewalk Program. Per Township Ordinance, an additional 25% engineering fee to Spalding Dedecker for a total project cost of $319,240.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Second?
Clerk Barry? Discussion? Discussion? Seeing no discussion?
I have a
Trustee
question. Thank you. There's a number of contractors that bid on that. I saw the bid tabs there. Were any of them that have higher prices, have they done work for us before?
A few, but Luigi actually did the last year's program as well.
Okay, so they know exactly what they're getting into?
Correct.
Because sometimes
Correct.
I have a concern that we just need to do so many cubic feet of concrete, and there's more to it, as you've already explained to us. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's half the battle is pouring the concrete, the other half.
Thank you.
I got one real quick.
Trustee Deming?
One real quick one for Spalding. I probably should have called you ahead of time. Approximately how many man-hours are put in by your company to do, let's say, by the time we go out, take the pictures, rate the sidewalks, send the letters? Can you give me, you don't have to be close. I know this is a far-off question, off the ball, but I just thought, since somebody's brought up about the 25% cost, if you can give us some idea, please.
Yeah, it's hundreds, if not north of 1,000. You're talking 485 residents, and each one of them gets a 7-page letter. Each one of them gets an opportunity to call, email, et cetera. That's not including putting together bid documents, locations, GIS assessments, putting it out to bid, walking through bid recommendations, and then obviously inspection and construction administration.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but just following up with Trustee Demink, it sounds like maybe you're expending like it's a gift almost for us, that you're probably at 26% of every slab. I have a problem with the administrative fee or the engineering fee, and I can't support the program as a result of that, and the fact that I think we're a little hypocritical in our assertion that the township needs to have the residents pay for a Zone 5 or a Level 5 failure rated sidewalk, yet we have township-owned property that really is in dire need of repair, and we don't do much about that. So not your issue, but I can't support it. I will say, in response to Trustee Vosberg, watching the different contractors over the zones, last year's contractor I thought was much improved over the previous year for one reason, and that is the way that they took the slabs out. In Zone 2, I think we had a contractor that was a little bit more, a little less surgical. They came in with heavy equipment, and they damaged, as part of the process, grass and a lot of turf. This contractor does a much more surgical removal, and they stay on the cemented path. They don't really get their equipment up into the lawn, and they're able to extract the broken slab much more effectively. And I think that probably adds to their overall cost, but it's well worth it. So from a vendor selection, I think they do great work, and I really can't complain about the program from that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Barry, can you call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Item 10C.
Item 10C is to approve a recommendation from Public Services to award engineering design services to OHM in the amount of $340,000 for the Morris Demink Anchor Bay Station repairs and $150,000 for the outlet sewer rehabilitation.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any
Support.
support? Treasurer Elliott. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Do you just want to give them where we're at in the phase in the original? Can you start from the beginning when the assessment was done and then where we're at in the phase of the project, the rehabilitation?
So as a brief, yeah, sure. As a brief summary, in 2021, we did a assessment of the station, which was finished end of 2021. In 2022, we started emergency repairs to one pump and one motor, and that was recently finished earlier this year.
Yep.
And so now we're coming back to the board for everything else that was included in that assessment, completed in late 2021.
Questions from the board? Trustee Demink.
You guys, why don't you just add that, how we're gonna do this repair from the station down to the outlet, since we've added that in now. That was after we met that day. I know Trustee Vosberg and I and some other board members met with you guys. So we're gonna TV or sonar the pipe all the way from pump station down to Fish Creek. I know we have a problem right out in front, correct, when major pump kicks on. So that's all part of the same project, correct?
This is all part of the same project. We did split it into two separate components. So one is just the station and the other is just the pipe, but it's all part of the same package here. And to your point, yes, there was an issue found just outside of the station. And fortunately, the sonar revealed that there was no collapse or no major blockage, which is good news. But what it did reveal is there is a large open joint there that we need to address. Unfortunately, this pipe outlets directly to Lake St. Clair, and it's always underwater. So it's a significant undertaking just to get equipment inside to address, repairs to that pipe. So everything's got to be shut down, blocked off, dewatered, and then, heavy civil work to make that repair.
Is any of the pipe showing above water now, since the water is, depth has dropped some since this winter?
I haven't looked, access to the pipe is limited. There's only access at the station or at the lake.
Right.
So even though you can see the top of the pipe at the abutment,
Okay.
the canal bridge, the actual pipe as it moves back towards the station is a little bit lower.
Okay.
So that column that's around that outlet pipe is not actually the pipe itself. It's just the support in that abutment. So when we looked at it, what was that, 3 weeks ago?
Yep.
3 weeks ago? It was fully surcharged to the top. There was no gap whatsoever inside the pipe.
So you take when we do this sonar, we're gonna put some type of cofferdam in front of where the discharge is, and then pump the pipe dry so you guys can run the sonar through it?
The great thing about the sonar, it's robotic, and everything is done with sensors under the water level. So
Okay.
it does have a camera. Because it's stormwater, it's clean water, you can see. You have limited visibility as long as you don't kick up a bunch of dirt sediments in the pipe. So you will have some visibility, but we don't have to dewater to do the sonar.
Okay. The only dewatering will occur is when we have to do any type of repairs.
Dewater,
And that was the
exactly.
other part we talked about where we might have to run a temporary behind.
So, and for everybody's reference, these pumps, there's 4 of them, 50,000 gallons a minute is the capacity on these pumps, which is a significant amount of water. It's not something you can just pick up a pump from Home Depot, throw it in and dewater. So we're talking about large bypass pumping needs for repair. That's where the significant cost is. That could be 25, 30, 40% of the cost is in bypass pumping and dewatering because of the amount of work that goes into that. So yes, when you make the repair, that is essential, almost no matter what you do, just because the pipe's always underwater.
So that's when, like, I think when we had that discussion, be like Mercino, one of those big pumping companies with those major pumps, like, when the county has to dewater, that's what they use, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the system that is proposed, we had Mercino out on site just to get a feel for the land and get a plan together to get some numbers. And the system they proposed was something similar to that, was a little bit smaller scale, similar to what was used on the 15-mile sinkhole collapse. So these are big pumps.
Right. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the information.
Trustee Joseph.
Thanks, Mr. Supervisor. I just really wanted to point out, we had some comments from the podium about, this was now a sudden admission of a problem, and the reality of the Domingue pump stations, we've been talking about this for years. I think I remember first Supervisor Accavetti, coming to the board with reports, and even back Mr. Coddington talking about these the pump life expectancy had really been exhausted, and we knew that we were in for a major repair. This was all part of the grant that came forward, and this expenditure is completely covered by, the bulk of it anyway. At least the first $4 million is really been earmarked in this grant that we received, and this is just the next phase in the reconditioning of the Domingue pump station. Also, for any resident that is concerned about water rates, this is completely separate from sanitary sewer. We're talking about stormwater maintenance and management, and that this is if not for the grant, this would be a general fund expenditure and not anything to do with the enterprise fund or water and sewer rates. Correct?
That's correct, yeah. The township did receive a $4 million grant from Environmental Protection Agency. There are some strings that come along with that drive up the costs, like, Buy America, Davis-Bacon, prevailing wage, things of that nature. Obviously, as a federal program, you have a lot of requirements you have to meet from a paperwork standpoint, but yeah, it's not gonna cover the full cost, but it'll cover a significant portion. And I kind of like to say that, phase 1, the emergency repairs that we replaced 1 pump and 1 diesel engine recently, that was because you couldn't get water to the pipe. Your pumps had failed. So you had water coming from, the Anchor Bay system service area to the station, and the pumps wouldn't work, couldn't push it out. That problem was resolved with replacement of the first pump. The next problem is now I can move the water, but I can't get it to the lake because the outlet sewer needs to be rehab. So there's 2 parts of this project, and that's why they were phased the way they were. You couldn't get water to this, to the pumps before. Now, we're addressing getting the water to the lake.
Thank you.
One more, Brad.
Go ahead. Trustee DeMille.
Real quick, so this is gonna cover basically the streets of Forbes, Mallard, Pheasant, Book Court, and then almost down to Cotton Road along Jefferson, correct?
Yeah, actually, the entire Jefferson corridor from that canal up to, I believe, Cotton is the cutoff, is also part of that service area.
And again, just to restate, not to step on your toes, this was a grant-funded project. We approved $1.5 million right off the bat to do the 2 pumps. Now we're talking about the discharge. You had budgeted an estimate of about $875,000, $895,000 for the discharge pipe. We're a little bit below that, but this is the first phase of it. So, I miss anything? Not to step on your toes.
No.
Paul, did I miss anything? Nope. Okay. Perfect. Further questions from the board? A motion, I'm sorry, Clerk Berry, item 10C.
Supervisor Kersten. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10D.
Item 10D is to approve a request by Public Services to approve the purchase of five BR-250 fire hydrants from East Jordan Iron Works for a total cost of $17,248.60.
Support.
Motion by trustee Dominguez, supported by trustee Anderson. Floor is yours, Paul.
These 5 hydrants will be to replace our current inventory. We are down to just 2 rehabbed hydrants. Our crews, when a hydrant gets hit, we will take it out, put in a new hydrant, and then we'll salvage what we can out of that used hydrant. Our crew's been doing that for the last year or so. We've been keeping up on our inventory, but we finally used our last few hydrants here between some of them getting hit, and we would like to replenish that stock for our inventory.
Questions? Questions on the board? I have a motion by trustee Dominguez, supported by trustee Anderson to approve item 10D. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Domingue.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10E.
Item 10E is to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval of rezoning number 371 to rezone 1.49 acres of land from A1 agricultural to R1B single family located at 34577 25 Mile Road, parcel ID number 0902400020.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Joseph? Jonathan?
Thank you. Yeah, this item, as stated, is a rezoning from agricultural to R1B residential, which would be a change in minimum lot size frontage from 120 feet to 75 feet. This request is consistent with the township's master plan, and it's consistent with the current subdivision that's being built across Baker, and then also consistent with the neighbors across 25 Mile in New Baltimore. The Planning Commission held a public hearing. There was no opposition to the request. They did unanimously recommend approval. Their recommendation for approval is based on the following reasons. 1, the R1B zoning is consistent with the master plan. 2, it's compatible with the surrounding area. 3, the master plan's future land use plan calls for single-family housing for the area. 4, crossroads can handle the traffic. The roads are classified as arterial roads. And 5, recent upgraded infrastructures and the ongoing infrastructure supports this rezoning of R1B.
Questions from the board? Trustee Vosberg.
The reasons that Jonathan just stated, they're also in the minutes from the Planning Commission. Can they be added to our motion?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, not so much of a comment or question, but a comment. I appreciated the review by the Planning Commission in terms of the consistency with the master plan. I'm typically not in favor of rezoning that substantially increases the footprint. This really does not. The other thing that I would point out, in addition to the rationale that you listed, that the Planning Commission identified in their minutes, is that this particular applicant is a township resident that I really have been very impressed with in terms of every project that Mr. Pyack gets involved with is typically top-notch, and he is very, very compliant and workable with our engineers, our planning, our zoning, even our assessing office. He is just been a great partner for the township, and I was happy to see that he is the applicant on this particular project. So, thank you.
Clerk Berry? Anything?
Ready?
Sorry. Again, I'm going to restate my motion. Supervisor Kersten, with the support of trustee Joseph, are going to make a motion to approve the rezoning request for the following reasons. The R1B zoning is consistent with the master plan. 2, it's compatible with the surrounding area. 3, the master plan's future land use calls for single-family housing in this area. Crossroads can handle the traffic. The roads are classified as arterial roads. And item 5, the recent upgraded infrastructure and the ongoing infrastructure supports the rezoning to R1B. Clerk Barry, would you call?
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10F.
Item 10F is to approve a recommendation to award contracts for the municipal office interior renovation project, including general contractor award to Braun Construction Group, Inc. in the amount of $3,520,051. Office furniture award to Kerr Albert in an amount not to exceed $400,000. AV Tech network allowance not to exceed $200,000. Exterior caulk allowance not to exceed $30,000. Partners in Architecture Program Management Services not to exceed $64,900, and project contingency in the amount of $421,495.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Treasurer Elliott. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So we're going to do a really detailed dive in this project. Obviously, you just heard a lot of numbers. We're going to take a little bit of time and go through each one of those numbers. We kind of broke this project up into 4 categories that you can see on the screen. We're going to take our time and go through each one of those categories. I apologize, it's a little bit of a long slide. There's about almost 40 slides, but I think there's a lot of detail in this project, and we kind of wanted to go through it. We spent a lot of time on this. We worked on it for about 2 years. So there was a lot of information, a lot of time. So we just want to share those details with you so everybody can make a really informed decision. So I'm going to start off. Like I said, we're going to go through this process. I have several members of our team here. We have Stephanie Yenna in our group, and Lauren from Partners in Architect, and Mike, the principal from Partners in Architects here. We also have Braun, our project partner, there's a representative here, and Ernie from Kerr Albert. So there's several people in the audience and several members of our team. Stephanie and Lauren are going to go through most of the slides as we get started, so I'm going to turn it over to Lauren.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Lee. I work with Partners in Architecture, and I have been working with the project team for about a year now on this. The overall project started off, we're actually in 2019 with the Township Hall. We did an analysis for ADA barrier-free compliance and a utilization study. From there, we did a project in 20 that had a toilet room update that we had at one end of the hall here, and the front desk was updated to be ADA compliant. From there, our scope got expanded in 22 to identify and correct some of the other issues that I've listed here. We wanted to correct HVAC issues that have been brought up not only in the age of the equipment, but also in the user groups and how they actually feel in the environment. Number 2, we wanted to optimize the underutilized building square footage. Some areas maybe are overutilized and some are underutilized, so we wanted to kind of optimize that. Number 3, we wanted to improve the public service with single service counter and a new senior center counter. So we wanted better public representation at this building. Number 4, create an improved public presence in the boardroom with integrated and upgraded technologies. So we have a lot of great technologies, but if you look at the details, it needs to be integrated a little bit better. And if I had to add a 5th here, one of the items that I'm going to talk about and touch on is just the overall environment of the building for the user groups and the public, and that expands beyond the HVAC and into daylighting and into views and also into the acoustics of the volume of this space. It is very unique in its architecture and it has great presence, but there are some use factors that could be done a little bit better, and so we wanted to try to look at that. The existing conditions, and I'll just show some imagery and talk a little bit about it, try to go quickly here. The top image is showing kind of how those views feel when you walk into this public. You really can't see any of the outside windows. There's no natural light coming from the outside perimeter. There is some natural light coming up from above, which is great. And then the second one is showing kind of that underutilized space. The next two on the top row to the right are showing kind of some of the details in this room and how we have, need to optimize that technology integration. The next slide is showing some of the volume in that user space, and that's getting into some of the acoustics and lighting and how we can kind of better that by reducing some of that volume in certain areas. The next slide, or the next image over in the middle on the bottom row, that's obviously the senior center area, which is very hard for people to find if they're first coming or they don't understand exactly where to go. So we're going to open that up and actually have a very user-friendly identified front desk for that senior center. The final two imagery are another scope of the project that was identified early on was the condition of the roof up along the perimeter, the outside perimeter of the octagon. That's been in need of repair, but it's been pushed off for a while, incorporated into this project. So there's two parts there. The HVAC systems would be, and this is kind of an overall conditions analysis, but this is talking about those two things. The HVAC, which we've actually presented prior in a bid pack 1, but that is showing the units that are up there. And the study that we did with our engineering team, we looked at, if we're going to be redoing the roof, should we be looking at where to relocate some of those HVACs? Can we optimize some of the HVAC for the user groups by making smaller HVAC or rooftop units throughout? And based on not only cost analysis, but the functionality and the zoning for those airflows, it was determined that if we reduce the size of 2 of the rooftop units and put smaller units around the perimeter, that it actually bettered the facility. And so that's what was determined to do here, along with the replacement of the roof. The project plan, we did present a plan. This is dated for February 25th, and I think it was presented sometime after that. This is just showing kind of how we came before, partners presented before. Actually, I came on right after this presentation to the project. And we've been working closely with Stephanie and Josh and their team, and then also with the user groups and the different departments to dive into some of the details. And from there, while the building looks the same, there have been some good developments in being able to clearly define the different departments and optimize that workability with the user group and with the public. And so now it's kind of a one-stop shop counter when you come up to that octagon. And then off to the right-hand side is that north wing, which will be turned into the administration wing there. This is an isometric view of the octagon. I thought this kind of helped show how we would kind of lay out the plan and help put a little bit of perspective on the overall plan. This does show kind of that pie-shaped wedges that we're looking to kind of clearly define each of the departments in that user group, but they all come to that octagon in the center and offer that presentation to the public as a unified front. One thing with this, and I'm going to try to do this, let's see, which button was it again? With the pointer, the red? Yep. Okay. This slide, we're trying to show how we wanted to better the views to the outside, bring in some natural daylight from that outside perimeter, bring down some of the ceilings and that volume in order to reduce the amount of heating and cooling that needs to happen in that space, and then also bring the lighting closer to the work surfaces. So what we show here from the outside, this outside wall here, these windows do not change from the outside perimeter, but we've tried to raise the ceiling as much as possible. Then we're creating kind of a glass wall connection here. So whether it's views out or views in, we're kind of opening that up from its current condition. And then the ceilings, instead of just following the truss line, are now going to be brought down, and we're creating kind of a soffit enclosed attic space where then the ducting can be run through there and supplied to the certain areas. So again, we're trying to optimize and better condition this space for the user group as well. And then that it opens back up into the volume in that kind of public area in the front end of the offices.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Yenna, and I'm from Facilities and Operations. I'm going to show you a little bit of what this project does from a public standpoint and also from the departments who work in the area. So as you'll see in this picture, the departments who regularly interact with the public, especially with monetary transactions, were positioned around the main counter. This change will help direct the public to one counter and to complete all their transactions. We added a counter across the way, as well as you can see by those boardroom windows, to allow the public additional space to access the internet for property and assessing research, a space to sit out and fill out forms, and also an area where the township staff can come out and assist them if they need more time than a quick stop at that front counter. A couple of areas to point out here to enhance what Lauren said is there were 3 sets of egress doors added. One double set of doors at the top left-hand side of your screen that will allow for equipment to get in and out to service that area. And obviously the access doors will work in emergencies. The senior center hallway that Lauren mentioned has the solid window will be replaced with a barrier-free counter to kind of match what we did at the front public counter. The walls, there will be walls constructed throughout the pie shape to help delineate department space and measure up how it feeds into that front service counter. The walls, along with lowering the ceiling, will help reduce the sound travel in the neighboring departments. There's been meeting rooms and collaborative workspaces positioned between the departments, which allows the team time to meet without reserving public meeting rooms in the building. And with virtual meeting rooms becoming part of daily business, these breakout rooms will assist by accommodating monitors and video feeds. You'll see that there's an audio-visual room added near the boardroom, which will house the sound equipment, and then also a designated mail room for the staff. Other key areas to outline is the furniture. The furniture in these renderings, although it will be further on in this presentation, we'd like to point out that the furniture has been incorporated as part of the architectural design and is a key part in the improved department workflow and overall remodel. A majority of the current furniture was purchased in the 1990s, and other sections were given to the township after the county remodeled some of their offices. This is a glimpse of some of the jagged laminated edges and the tape that's used to smooth out the surface. And as you see, drawers over time don't close. So we just wanted to point some of that out. The administration wing will house the following departments. The red star outlines how to get into that area. So that will have an admin lobby entrance. And then the 2 offices to the left will remain as an open space to meet with the public. There's also a designated space for election storage, along with secured room for file storage, and a large conference room has also been added. So taking a deeper dive into the new boardroom, we're proposing turning the dais, which allows the board access into the closed chamber room behind the wall. Additional monitors are added to maximize presentation viewing. The AV room is also pointed out here, and alongside of that to the far right is a private mothering room, and those are all shown in this view.
I'll kind of touch on a couple of additional slides here. Just looking at the overall design and comprehensiveness of the space, we wanted to kind of show what it would look like from the public side if they were to do kind of a 360 around the space. So we're looking to unify the building with an overall design and update in incorporating some of those the goals that we had listed before. This is the view from the staff side, so of the service counter. A couple of things to point out here is we can see the views going in both directions, and also this starts to tell the story a little bit from like a human scale, kind of bring that volume down a little bit with the soffits kind of running around this open area. So while the back, right behind, if you were standing here right behind you, the ceilings would be brought down. We didn't bring down all of the ceilings. We did add some soffits around the side here, which is kind of outlined in the blue. And then we carried that blue throughout the inner office area. So The top picture and the bottom picture kind of show how that new ceiling would be brought down into that space, but the views would be opened up from the office and all the way into that octagon area. There's a couple of floating circles up here. This is where the ceiling does open up to its current volume with that truss, and we are proposing to kind of bring some acoustical panels and hang them from the ceiling here. So we're trying to optimize all locations but not cut off all of the volume. Couple another views from the boardroom. This is just kind of showing how we wanted to bring that design into the boardroom, but that the dais actually is a little bit unique with that new kind of wood color that we brought in. So that does stand out, and it brings the attention appropriately to the dais. Are there any questions at this point of the presentation? Continue? Okay. So the number 2 that we have is the general contractor bid and award section. Kind of wanted to go through our process with that. Partners in architecture, when we work with other municipalities and other clients that have kind of a 2-part project, which in this case was the police department and the township hall kind of at the same time, we have done an approach where trying to look at it from the best approach of the township, whether one contractor for 2 projects or 2 projects bid individually. That might be something that would be advantageous from a budget standpoint or from a schedule or from a meetings, right, just general time. We wanted to approach the bidding process with both of those options. So when we went to bid, we did bid the township hall project and the police project at the same time, then gave the contractors the choice of whether they would bid one project or both projects, or potentially give us a third. If we gave them both projects, could there be some savings for us, that advantage for the township? So throughout the bidding process, when we did have our walkthroughs, we had 2 separate days where we met out at the police department and then came over to the township hall. On both days, we had an exceptional turnout. We had both trades that were asking us a ton of questions and poking their heads into all parts of the building. We had general contractors out here as well. A great showing and a lot of interest in this project. The day that we turned in, or that we received the bids and that they were read aloud, we actually received 8 envelopes. The top 2 are grayed out because they were deemed what are they deemed? Incomplete. So they did not incorporate the entire project. They were trade specific, and we can't really accept those. So the 6 general contractors that showed up, we then had to go through the process of vetting them. Are they comprehensive? Can they meet our schedule? Are they good to work with? Have we had past experiences? What are their recent and relevant projects? All of those things were taken into consideration during the initial analysis and reading through their information, and we deemed that 4 contractors would be interviewed, and so we interviewed Braun, Summit, DNS, and Axiom. Through that, the next stage, we actually asked the contractors, the 4 of them that we interviewed, to provide us with their bid breakdown, which showed us individual trade costs, and then also the schedule, so we could kind of take that next level of analysis. And working with Stephanie and Josh, we put together our own spreadsheet to try to create some comprehensiveness and some apples-to-apples comparison with all of these contractors. We ultimately ended up comparing 3, so one of them we eliminated from the process, and we had 3 that we compared. This takes into consideration the allowances that we requested, the alternates that we requested as well. Now, the alternates were something that we put in kind of as a menu. We were giving the township the opportunity to either incorporate them in the project or not incorporate them in the project. It was a way to maybe control the budget. So we had all these different factors within this bid process, and still we had a fantastic turnout. Throughout this process and the interview and talking with the Braun group, they asked some great questions. They brought to light some alternate approaches to what we had proposed. They offered solutions to the problems we haven't even considered yet, like some installation issues that we were coming up against. And based on some of those conversations, we really felt confident with how they were approaching this. And so our ultimate, looking at the total numbers at the bottom here, we have a very, very close comparison between these three contractors. We're within 100,000-ish for the total project across the board. And so what really stood out was schedule and the comprehensiveness of the understanding of the project. And so with that, our recommendation is going to be to move forward, giving Braun Construction Group a combined project that gives us a little bit of savings by combining those two and working with one contractor, and kind of optimizes that communication line with one contractor throughout this entire process. Are there any questions about this portion of the project, the presentation? Okay.
So this next section, and obviously we'll ask for questions at each one, and then at the end you feel free to ask any questions at the end also. But we just wanted to give you the opportunity because it is a long presentation, so we're close though. But with this, we kind of wanted to go over, obviously with every project, there's additional details outside of the Braun contract. So that's what we're going to discuss now, the owner cost in this project that we identified long ago that are outside of the Braun contract. For example, the technology and network allowance. We put an allowance in this project after looking at the technology and network in the current existing building. Ever since we started, I guess pictures are worth 1,000 words. This will kind of show you above our ceiling, this is a current existing picture. It's a mess. It's been a mess since we've gone on board and we've took these pictures. I took these pictures back in 2017. And that's our existing network wiring and cable. It's just when it was done originally, it was kind of thrown up on the drop ceiling. So every time you pull down a tile, you get a bird's nest worth of wire. So what we did is we put together a comprehensive plan working with a network consultant, partners, and our team to develop a really detailed layout of our network. I apologize, there's a lot of detail here. You can't really see it all. But the items in red, the boxes kind of show where our existing card readers are, where our new card readers will be going. The blue arrows show where our new monitors will be going in our conference rooms. The green dots represent all of our personnel with name, and then there's red data drops for each person. There's also a really detailed layout of the cable tray, something that we really missed in this building. There's a dotted blue line that kind of wraps around the inner perimeter of the office. We're putting in a cable tray that runs from one server to another so we can cleanly identify wires. We also included in here color-coded wires. So when our wires are installed, you're going to have color-coded wires for each item, so they'll easily be seen and identified. So those are all things that are typical now, but back when this was done, they weren't. So that's where that network allowance is going. The next allowance is something we identified long ago too when we first started this project, and we're going to take this opportunity to get it done, is the caulking on the exterior building. This is a majority fully bricked building. The exterior brick is in great shape, but the problem you have is caulk only has a useful life of so long. So when we cut in these new doorways and we put in our new penetrations, the budget that you see in your package includes caulking for the entire building. So every window, every door jamb, everything will be peeled out and re-caulked. That's the number that we got that we included in there. That'll be another ownership managed item. And then Stephanie's going to go into detail about the furniture.
Okay, as part of the furniture bid process, we went along with Partners Renovation Design, and due to the amount of the furniture that will be in this building, we decided to make 3 sample areas, as you see here, an office layout A, B, and then a workstation. And then in December of 2023, we put out an RFP asking for prices for just these areas. There were 5 qualified bids that came back. You can see them along the top, and that's their pricing for those sample areas. And they also included pricing for some of the more common items that we see in the work areas, just to kind of give a gauge on other items that will be in the complete picture. Once we went through the bid process, we conducted site visits for all 5 bidders. And then after seeing examples of their work, the bidders were then narrowed down to 2 vendors, ISCG and Kurt Albert. And here you see some of their renderings side by side. So once we narrowed the selection down to 2 vendors, we asked both of them to take a deeper dive into the project and look at the entire municipal building. And this was no small feat. Both of the companies put in a ton of work. Both of them reached out and asked a lot of questions to understand the scope and the needs. And both vendors presented their renderings and their new bids on time. So we'll look at how their bids came back. This is the municipal office without the wall, so you can see there's a lot of furniture incorporated here. So looking at the 2 bids side by side, ISCG, they provided their pricing by department area, whereas Kurt Albert broke it down into more of our phasing. So we chose the phasing model for you today. The boardroom was not required to be priced out, so what you'll see at the top here is we took the boardroom out just for early comparison prices. We took that out of Kurt Albert's. And then we went through and really compared every component within their bids, and we gave allowances for additional features that one company may have had where the other one didn't. So then as you can follow the numbers down, you'll see that we actually crossed over those additional features and added them to the other person's bid to try to compare apples to apples. And then another big component of this is when we went around to all the department staff throughout the process, many of the staff inquired about getting adjustable desks to help them with their everyday workflow, to make them more comfortable, to stand up and everything throughout the day. So with that, we looked into the cost of adjustable desks. ISCG was about $1,000 a desk upgrade, whereas Kurt Albert was about $150 max. They would take some components out of the stationary desks, and so that was a very reasonable price. So coming down towards the bottom of this chart, you'll see that approximately there's 50 desks in this municipal building. We added $50,000 to ISCG side, and then the calculation for the $150 on Kurt Albert's. And then we added the boardroom back to the project. So as you can see, that bottom number is very comparable, very, very comparable. Today's recommendation is to award the contract to Kurt Albert. Their in-house service team, along with the township's many previous positive business dealings, is part of our recommendation today. So we'd like to move forward with them. This next slide kind of brings it all together. So what you see is from Lauren's presentation, the general contractor award to Braun of the 3.5, the allowances that we spoke about for the furniture, the technology, exterior caulk, and then also the increase for this phase of Partners in Architecture's contract. We wanted to point out the 10% contingency that we're asking for, and then also 2 previously approved parts of this project that, as you know, the HVAC units were ordered, and it was just the units, not the installation, and then Partners' current contract. So that brings us down to the total proposed project cost of $5.129. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions from the board?
Okay.
Mine's just on one slide. All right, so the township bonded for this renovation project, and I'm just gonna go over the total bond, revenue, and then the expenses. As you can see at the top is our revenue. We had a bond for $5.195 million. We had a bond premium on that sale of $166,000 approximately. and an estimated interest revenue through April of about $220,000. We do project to have, a little bit more in the coming months, but that's where we're sitting as of now. The next area is our expenses. I broke it out into two areas. The first area, you're gonna go down to that subtotal for board approval at $4,636,000. That is everything that was just discussed. I lined it out exactly how it is worded in the agenda package. So you can see that those numbers tie. And then below that is the HVAC units that was previously approved, partners in architecture. And then the additional thing that came out of this bond that wasn't discussed today, but it is important, is the municipal parking lot board approval that is meant to come out of this bond revenue, for a total of $5,853,000. Any difference between bond revenue and expense would be coming out of general fund. Do we have any questions?
Questions from the board? Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. I think this is an easy question with an easy answer, but I believe Josh had used the term ownership management. Was that for, I heard it with the COG. Is that the AV also?
Correct. Those are things that we as owners manage are outside of Braun's cost, so you don't pay them to manage those items. Typically, with your AV network, because we have in-house IT, you want to collaborate with them. So those items, the caulking on the exterior, is easy for us to manage as one contractor. Those items that are spelled out individually, even the furniture, we took those out of Braun's contract, so we didn't have to pay a management fee. Basically, it just saved the township some money.
Oh, okay. I mean, we could have left it in there for them
Correct,
to manage.
yes.
All right. And is there any, you're saying the AV, that's a larger number. That's because we have a company we work with? You're saying that we will leave it up to them?
Well, we went through with a networking design company, us partners, and our IT department, and we identified there was several areas that we needed to improve, so we put an allowance number in the contract. What's nice about an allowance number is it gives us the flexibility. It's a do not to exceed number, but that doesn't mean that we're gonna spend the whole $200,000. We put together a budget based on needs. We went through and identified everything that we needed, put a cost to it, and then we put that allowance in the contract.
All right, but again, we are in control
We
of
control that
not
number,
the general
correct.
contractor or PIA?
Yes, and we will be coming to the board on a regular basis and giving updates as we go through this process.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understood how that flowed. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further? Trustee Joseph?
Thank you. I'm less concerned about the caulk. It's roughly like less than 1% of the total cost, but since it's been raised, all of the items that are in addition to are, you said, owner managed, and looking at the cost, what like of the general contractor sort of relationship, what kind of hours do we have in addition to the 30,000, for any one of the items? Do you have an idea of what it costs our people to oversee the project, all of the owner managed projects?
Great question. We can put those numbers together, but the trades that we picked, since we have an IT department in-house, they would probably be, because when you're buying IT equipment, it's kind of mission specific. You're buying stuff that fits with your existing network. So your IT department always has a lot of influence on what you buy and how you buy it. So it's important, and we would spend a lot of time with the contractor, almost as a third party going back and forth, when we can just make those decisions and move forward. And to give you another example, we tried to pick like the furniture. We already did our homework going in, so we have a roadmap to get it done. We're dealing with one vendor. At this point, it's pretty simple to be managed, just like the caulk. We already got the price. We talked to the vendor. It's really just a matter of getting him out here. During this project, we'll have weekly project progress meetings with our whole entire team, and we will incorporate those project meetings or those contractors' questions into those meetings as we go. It's kind of a collaborative process. So there will be a little bit more work, but since the heavy lifting, we're already doing it on a weekly basis anyway, it really won't be that much, but I could quantify it if you'd like.
No, it's not really important tonight, but I'm just general question for you. All of the people that were associated with the presentation, excellent job, by the way. I mean, it's a big project, and the difficulty of communicating all of those details just is an exercise all by itself. So very nice job just in the presentation, but I got the board packet when it was posted to the public. I'm assuming it was posted to the public when I got the email at Thursday evening. Honestly, I couldn't get through 1,300 pages of documentation. I mentioned to Clerk Berry if she, as a full-time official, had a copy of the PowerPoint. I think that would have been at least a start, and then I could have used the 1,300 pages to sort of dive in areas where I had questions. But I'm not really comfortable voting to approve nearly $6 million in expenditures, 1,300 pages of documentation for a packet that I just got a few days ago. I would really appreciate an opportunity to look through this and provide decent questions, and I would ask for a motion to postpone vote on this for 1 month and give the board an opportunity. Unless, if I'm the minority board member and there are board members that are comfortable and you feel that you've been able to get through 1,300 pages of documentation and you're prepared to vote, but I'm not. And I would ask for some opportunity to digest a very comprehensive packet and ask for a motion to postpone for 1 month. I'm sorry, that was just my motion to postpone, and I would ask for support.
There's a motion to postpone by Trustee Joseph. Is there any support?
Second.
Motion to postpone by Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Berry. I don't want to withdraw my motion. I'm comfortable with it.
But just to state my motion, I would ask just to postpone. I think the meeting would be 5/21 would be the second meeting.
Question, Trustee Vosberg.
Yeah, is there a timeline that the contractors are under, or PIA? Could I hear?
Mr. Supervisor, point of information, there's a motion to postpone. I don't believe that it has debate.
There is. I thought you had a question on the motion, so.
I'm sorry.
I thought you had a question on the motion. That's what I was asking.
Correct, I do.
Please proceed.
And a motion to postpone can be discussed, I believe.
It can.
Yes. All right, so I just wanted to know what type of time frame the parties who are involved in this have, and what postponing for a month, what if any impact that would have, Mr. Supervisor?
Josh, you want to address a contractor potential delay or a bidder award delay?
So, a couple things. One, Mike just pointed out to me that the bid packages, because we've had them for quite some time and they were so close, they hold for 90 days. So I think at that point they would be expired, the 90-day window would be over, because we tried to use that as much time as we could to do our due diligence. So that's one factor. The other factor is we did, because we kind of, we were looking down the street at the timeline, trying to be proactive. Remember, we came to the board and ordered the HVAC equipment. That's scheduled to hit the ground. The curbs come in, which is the base of the RTUs. Those come in, they could be delivered tomorrow, and then the rooftops aren't far behind, so we would have to have that equipment on site. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that you could think of, Lauren? I think those are...
We didn't talk about a lot tonight, but the overall schedule would be impacted as far as when the construction would be completed, but.
Good point. So right now, we're scheduled, we had a meeting with our Braun, that they're set to finish like first week in January into December, so at the year's end, we'd be pretty close to wrapping up this project is our projected timeline. So,
Is it okay if I add something? My name is Steve. If you would go to, the question is, Josh, it's going to impact the.
yeah, I just wanted to give you the factors that we knew of, sorry.
Thank you. Trustee Voss.
And then I would like to point out, and I'm sure Trustee Joseph noticed the same thing, there are lots of pages in there, but many of them are the technicalities of the bid document and other things, whether something was going to be a certain size or caliber or whatever the equipment and supplies and building tools, not tools, whatever they call that stuff, supplies would be. Those are all the technicalities. I don't need to understand all of those technicalities. That's why we hire general contractors. So I feel like I have gone through them all. I didn't read every last word, but I saw, oh, that's part of the bid package, and I was able to just separate that for the time being and continue on to see what all of the elements of that package were.
Agreed. Thank you. Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, I assume if it's in the bid packet, if it's in the board packet, it's relevant for me to read. In order to discern whether or not it's irrelevant, you have to read it first. So I don't know how I get through 1,300 pages, and I don't know the method. Do I just take the chapters and just set it aside and say, oh, that's not relevant? You got to read to know what's relevant and what isn't. This coming to the board, and as I heard the rebuttal to the timeline concern, it was not only would it push the building, the construction, but we've had these for 90 days, and we couldn't even allow the board to look it over for a few weeks because we would be up against a timeline. And I think that speaks to the overall problem when we're going to spend $6 million of the taxpayers' money and we don't give their elected officials time to even comprehend a 1,300-page packet. It is very difficult. So, I have a motion to postpone. If it fails, we continue the discussion, and I'll share a couple of other items. But I think some time to reflect and form questions would be most appropriate before you spend $6 million of the taxpayers' money.
Any further comments? I have a motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Clerk Berry, to postpone to, I think I heard 5/21. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Supervisor Kersten.
No. Again, back to the original motion. I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10F.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, if we're allowed to continue the
Trustee
discussion.
Joseph,
yes. The overall concern I have with this, we have a building, we're in a building that is roughly 35 years old. We have an estimate beginning at close to $6 million in needed renovations. In addition to the bond money that we borrowed for the next 20 years, we have at least $250,000 in addition to that coming out of the general fund. When you look at the expenses that we've incurred in the general fund, just in the last year and a half, we purchased a building that is 50 years old with a fraction of the documentation that we got tonight on this, and we're prepared to go forward without any real commitment financially from the general fund, even though we were told that we're millions of dollars in need of repair from day one through year 2 or 3. I don't know how we're going to keep up with all of these transactions without raising taxes. And I don't know that we can borrow our way to prosperity and to pretend that the debt that we just incurred, although we used ARPA money, it will require general fund expenditures. And so we're going to have our, if I understood the presentation tonight, we're going to have our public works people, or DPS people, managing a 50-year-old building that we know is $5 million in the first few years, in addition to a major project here where we're going to try to save money by dedicating our staff to act as the general contractor on a number of issues, including massive IT, all of the other things that how do we do all that financially without added burden to the taxpayers, and really logistically when we have a community center building that we know is 15 years older than this building? Why are we pretending? Because the rationale that we used to purchase that building was like, well, all of the children are still in school there and must be safe, but we don't make the same argument here. This is a safe building, is it not? Of course. But we need $6 million to repair this, and we got to do it right away. We know that we just purchased a building that's even older than this, and we're pretending like that doesn't need anything. I think it's very, very short-sighted and very risky, and the amount of money that we continually spend, I don't know where it comes from. I really don't, and that's why I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Treasurer Elliott.
Director Bauer, could you come to the podium? And while she's coming up, I want to say I agree. This was a fantastic presentation today, very comprehensive and very informative. And in response to the question that was just brought up, I had talked with Director Bauer today. We had discussed exactly the fund balance and where we're at here in the general fund. And can you address that? And also the timeline for when we think we're going to know the final number. We're estimating there's going to be a 271,000 that possibly could come out of the general fund. And what are the factors that are going to could possibly affect that number?
Sure. So for general fund, we are sitting with a fund balance for the beginning of 2024 of approximately $10,620,000. So we are over 100% of our annual expenditures. That's something that you hear the auditors speak about quite a bit. So that's a healthy fund balance. Additionally, when we were looking at it's hard because we don't have a crystal ball to know exactly what the expenditures are, and I've heard on a number of occasions Josh say that he's come under budget with something. So with the presentation that we just showed, I was trying to be conservative with known facts. So we know what our bond revenue is. We know what our bond premium is. We don't know what our estimated interest income is going to be because we're still earning interest on money that is not been spent on the project. At this point, we had about $220,000 through April. Again, we're going to have more, and that will offset some of that difference at the end, again, depending upon how fast we spend it. So I didn't project on like May and June and July's interest income, but I just wanted to say that there will be additional to offset that. And then as projects come in, and that's their cap, if they come in under at all, then obviously our total expenditures won't be as much, so you won't have any of that coming out of general fund. But the nice thing that when Stephanie put together some of the stuff, she tried to incorporate all of the costs. So it's the stuff from Partners and Architect and the HVAC that we've already spent and had board approved, but that's also baked into the numbers that were shown tonight.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Clerk Barry?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, if I understood that right, we're optimistic about coming in under budget. Why do you think it is that we have a 10% contingency fee for over budget? So we have built into the process 400,000, 500,000 of a contingency fee for over budget, yet we're optimistically reporting confidence in being under budget. It just doesn't seem to be a fair way of looking at this, but is your general conclusion that the fund balance is such from the finance director standpoint that we're well positioned to absorb some of the expenditures that we've taken on, including this project and others that we have committed, monies towards, specifically our community center?
So, to digest because I think you had a couple questions within that statement. As the finance director, I looked at total bond revenue. Where do we get the money? And obviously with interest income, we have an estimate, a secure estimate of kind of what we've earned to date. So I can be optimistic that the number that I presented is at least going to be the number that you're going to see. Then on the expenses, I'm not your general contractor, I'm your CPA, I'm a finance director. I don't know how they're going to end up being on all of them. I know that they have thresholds, and I know that they have a contingency. I also know I typically see a contingency. Josh can speak on if 10% was accurate or enough, but I think what it kind of got down with your question, the crux of it, is if every dollar was spent from the proposal that we had, and every penny, we didn't get any more in interest, and the net change is $271,000 coming out of general fund, that piece alone, could general fund sustain it? Absolutely. They're 100% of their fund balance.
My question wasn't the 270, but it's somewhat rhetorical. I've never been involved with a project that we went into it saying we're confident that we're going to be less than this because we come in under budget. It just doesn't typically work out that way. And then secondly, the napkin math that I did, and I don't have the math brain that you do, but if we have the interest there now, basically we have the bond money sitting in an interest accrual type, we're somewhere between, if I'm right, $50,000 and $70,000 a month in interest. So from a financial, am I close?
That is where it was around $50,000.
About $50,000. So just one question, and it'll be my last. If we postpone this, we would have an additional $50,000 in interest while we deliberate and think it over. Just from a finance, is that an accurate statement?
The longer you have the money in the account,
yeah,
the more interest you'll earn. However, I do want to point out, I didn't come up here in my original presentation and say, hey, I hope we're under budget. I said, these are the numbers that I have. Then Kathy had asked the question of, like, we were sitting. Okay.
You've answered my question.
Sure.
Thank you. Any further comments? Clerk Berry.
Thank you. My question is on performance of the vendors. So I understand that they're bonded in order to we have assurances that they're able to perform. But Josh, what is the process in the event that one of the vendors that's chosen, and I don't know if these contractors are going to have subcontractors, I imagine they do. What if one of their subs can't perform or one of the vendors can't perform? What's the process for addressing that?
Sure. So real quick, Braun, who's been a general contractor, and that's one of the reasons why they were chosen, they choose their subs, and all the subs, that's why we asked for a detailed list of each sub and their cost. And one of the things we look at when we look at that sheet is if those names look familiar to not only us, but partners. So all those subs are reputable subs. There's no new subs that have been in business. They did Presbyterian Village, the 8-story building on Callens in 23. They just completed that. And really, kind of to elaborate, this is a pretty simple project. This kind of falls into a construction wheelhouse. There's no foundation, there's no roof work. And a project like this to run over budget is rare. And I know historically our group, we've done some unusual projects, from shoreline projects, Weber Paddle Park, fire station. Every project we've touched has been under budget. So I just wanted to make sure we state that. That's something we take pride. You can see the detail we put into the planning. That's why we used our 90 days to do our homework and research. Thank you.
Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Treasurer Elliott, to approve item 10F. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Nope.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, no.
Item 10G.
Item 10G is to approve a recommendation to award a contract for the Police Department Exterior Rehabilitation Project to Braun Construction Group in the amount of $2,090,909 and a project contingency of $209,091.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Again, floor is yours.
Sorry. Lauren Lee, talking about the process that we put into place or that we have gone through for the police department renovations. This project started back in '21. We were approved to go ahead and move forward with an analysis of this existing project or existing building. There was a number of very obvious building issues that have been causing problems for a while now. And I want to go through just the project overview. I want to talk about some of those existing conditions, talk about our testings, and then the project process and where we came back. I will say that we did bring this before, so I'll try to keep it brief, and if there are questions, I can kind of go into a little bit more detail. But because this was already presented, I don't want to belabor. So just to review the overall again, we did want to identify and correct the current water infiltration issue. One of the biggest issues that we found at this was that the water is just not being kept out of the building. We also wanted to identify and correct the exterior wall and mezzanine cracking that's happening. Again, very obvious thing when you look at the exterior facade and when you go up onto the mezzanine. We want to improve and optimize the exterior envelope for better energy efficiency and work environment for the police department. And we wanted to create a public presence, not only towards Continental for the public coming up to the building, but also along Town Center Boulevard. It's just a building that you look past right now. So we wanted to bring a little bit of presence. So the bottom picture kind of shows that from Town Center, which it doesn't look like a police station. There is no presence there to know where you're going or who's there. The top two pictures are showing the water. That kind of spotted look up in the top right-hand corner, that's water. That is the penetration points of the wall as the moisture is retained within the wall. And then the left is actually what's happening, that the block is actually oozing out and the paint is just chipping off. So again, showing the overall elevations kind of pieced together through the photographs, you can see all of those water marks and the issue with the block. With those potential deteriorations of the exterior materials, we wanted to do some conditions testing. So the right-hand part of the screen was looking at the integrity of the masonry. So we're going to be putting back up, or the solution that was brought up was to wrap the building with a spray, vapor barrier, and moisture protection, and then cover that with an updated metal cladding around the entire perimeter, except for one facade that is currently brick. And in order to verify that the masonry was going to be able to hold up that system, we did a block study, and we found that all the block in its various points of testing has retained its integrity, so it is good to move forward with this. The left-hand portion of the screen is our structural engineer brought in his analysis, walked through, looked at all the cracking on the exterior of the building, and the solutions were actually kind of developed together with how to retain the operations in the police department while this construction is going on. So the fix that we're proposing is actually working from the outside of the building. There's going to be sound, but the people are going to be maintained inside the building and operations maintained. So the project plan, this is kind of a site overview. The parking lot was not part of our scope, but there are portions of the site that I will point out. We are going to add a security fence around a majority of the perimeter in order to secure the police department vehicles into a back security area. We are going to enhance the front entrance. We are also going to add a dumpster enclosure, which is currently missing. And also and I'll kind of point out, just this little area right here, the dispatch was newly renovated. And part of what we have been seeing is a trend is that that is considered a very high intensity, high stress work environment, and to create that connection and a break point to be able to step outside for a minute is a great stress release and an improvement in their work environment. So that was incorporated into the project as well. Here's what the imagery that we showed before. It is metal cladding. All of it that you see there is metal cladding. We just used different textures and different material finishes to enhance the design in certain ways, add the signage, and now this is the view that you would see from Town Center Boulevard. This is the brick facade that is currently the front entrance off of Continental. We would be staining the brick, not painting it, but staining it so that it actually ties in with the rest of the new kind of gray tone that we've done, and then adding that blue stripe just helps enhance that user group. Blue is very associated, obviously, with the police. Imagery of the front entrance. Currently, which is hard to tell, there's actually kind of two masonry wing walls that come out from the architecture currently, and we're proposing to enclose that, wrap it with metal, make it a statement piece, and add some signage. The existing door is still along this path and tucked right behind. So not doing too much, but trying to give it some enhancement. I'm not going to go through too much, but again, the bid process that we went through with the township was also done with the police department. So the same contractors were interviewed. During that interview process, we did have 2 representatives of the police department sitting in on those interviews, able to answer questions and be specific. So they actually did give some insight into their operations for the contractors and vice versa. And again, this is a repeat slide, kind of but focused on the blue columns this time, showing how very tightly bid this project was through the 3 contractors that were interviewed, and then kind of narrowed down to. And again, backing up the recommendation, we are recommending that Braun can move forward with both the Township Hall and the Police Department. Any questions on that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to be out of turn, but I just had a question. With the box on the bottom at the left, the combined 3.5, can you explain that box a little bit? I got a little confused there.
Sure. Basically, when we send out to bid, and I'm going to start at the top just to kind of explain the whole slide. We talk about a clarified base bid. We sent out a base project, and then we added those alternates in. That was, the alternates create our menu. So we were able to say things like, do we include the dais redo? There was a whole list of alternates that were included. So the base bid was the base project. And then from there, we had the alternates included. Now, the police department's alternates was really a DTE ad that we have here. And so the base bid and the alternate for the police is what comes to the total project cost. The box to the left is the township breakdown. So this is one recommendation for both projects. So the Township Hall base bid is the 3.2. The alternates that were listed out as our menu items, which could have been included or not included, was the 3.9. And then I mentioned before that there is a savings to give one contractor both projects. And so that $30,000 is the deduct for combining this as a recommendation. We would not have seen that savings if we would say, let's go with Braun for the Township Hall, but we want to hire, let's say, DNS for the police. That savings would have been lost.
Just a question on that box, if I may. Sorry. The $30,000 for the combined bid shows up on the township side. I realize that it's all township, but one of these projects is paid for out of the police SAD or the public safety SAD, and one is coming out of the grant money bond money.
Correct.
Why does the $30,000 savings appear on the township side? And I realize it's a small amount, but if it's a shared bid, at least like $15,000 to each, so that the SAD doesn't absorb, or get neglected in any of the savings? What was the decision there?
I think that was a way to maximize that savings in a certain category. 15,000, like you said, is not that much in a total project, so by putting it under one and saving 30 in one category seemed to be the biggest impact for the savings.
Okay, I guess my point is lost, but I was saying, like, if there's a 30,000 savings for the joint project,
Yep.
police department doesn't realize any of that savings? It just is attributed to the bond portion of the?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any further questions? Any further questions? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize that. I just had a question on that box. But in the larger scope of this, I'm also same concerns that I had, although I'm a little bit more in the know in terms of this particular building, only because, you know, we're over there every month. But just as recently as our meeting on the 3rd last week, we still didn't have these numbers. This is not something that's been made available to the board. And Mr. Supervisor, I just point out that even in the packet tonight, the agenda item is reflected as the entirety of the project and the documentation associated can be found on pages 1,397 through 1,398. The only documentation is the executive summary. This PowerPoint is brand new to us, and when I brought this to the clerk's attention, I wasn't quite through the 1,300 pages on this building, but I realized that we had another $2 million in expenditures, and I said, when I called the clerk, where is that? And I understand that that was posted to the township website this evening. But again, I won't go through because it seems like there's already the 4 votes for this, but this also should be something that the board is afforded an opportunity to review and digest and ask intelligent questions about another. And this particular expenditure does tap in. I don't need the finance director to talk to me about this one. This comes right out of the public safety SAD, and this is, my memory serves, roughly 1/3 of your entire fund balance for this. So something problematic for sure, but something that the board should have been given, especially the public safety liaisons. We've been talking about this every month on updates, and we didn't get any PowerPoint as recently as the 3rd. And I don't know why the lack of transparency and the disclosure and wanting to bring support through questions and honest debate. But again, it seems like the votes are there, so I'll wrap my comments.
Any further comments? Further questions? Trustee Anderson?
It wasn't that long ago we had 2 failed millages for the police department. And through the efforts of Treasurer LaFada, Mr. Joseph, came up with a sad process, probably to save the police department and throwing the fire department in the mix. And I'm looking at former chiefs, their stories about how they ran the budget in the red in the past. Now we're seeing 1/3 of the SAD funds eaten up by this project. As Trustee Joseph has mentioned, we were told that, yes, though, issues with water, hardening of the external frame of the building. It's an old warehouse, we know that. Hardening that, question I have is, if it's that precarious, maybe we shouldn't be spending anything, start looking for another location instead of putting the money in this building. But I'm just, it's, these expenditures, not just these, it's getting numbing, and I'll have some comments about that in my public comments that we have. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10G. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Yes.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, no.
Item 10H.
Item 10H is to consider proposed amendments to the employment agreements for the positions of Public Safety Director and Fire Chief Marshal.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion again to approve. Is there any support?
Support.
Trustee Demink. Within the packet, I had an email that I sent to you, and after lengthy discussions with both individuals involved, I think we've come to terms on a new agreement for them. There are some economic improvements to both agreement. There's some clarity offered for both parties, both the township and the individual employee. And again, these are individual personal service contracts. And I think it puts us in a better position with the said employer, the two employees, as far as their employment, what's required of them, and the economic pieces that go along with that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to them, if there are any. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thanks for the email where you outlined the additional contracts that you're looking at. And I understand the interest in trying to get some parity among our contracted employees. The difficulty that I have is, and I appreciate Director Bassett actually brought this to Trustee Anderson and I attention a few months ago. I was really troubled by a number of elements in these contracts, specifically the discussion about the separation and a separation package that includes basically a year's salary is a little bit much for me. I could understand it perhaps more for the public safety director is really on the hook for any, as we talked about in the beginning of the meeting, any kind of high-profile, ugly case. The buck stops with the director. And when these things happen in political climates, it's not an enviable position to be in. So I understand a package that takes that into account to avoid, problems with potential litigation or wrongful termination, and a very clean. But there's a cost associated with that. When it was initially presented, it was that the director had sort of been in communication. It sounded to me as if he were taking the lead and talking with some of the other contract holders who were in a similar boat. And the concept of a year separation package is one that I just can't support. The other issues, and I feel I have a decent enough relationship with the director to maybe talk with him about this, outside of the public arena. But there's no performance review. There's no discussion among the board members about the size of the contract or the compensation package, and looking through the existing contract and the proposed new contract. 14% pay raise is pretty substantial, and the difficulty when I do talk with rank and file is we're really not doing a great job in terms of parity, in terms of how we treat our employees when we bring this contract out. And I'll just point to one area. The contract affords the director a personal vehicle. Now, when you were appointed to the supervisor position, I thought it was important that you have the ability to get to the scene, and we were in a state of sort of flux in that before we could bring on your replacement, you needed to be seated, and that was a few months. We had good leadership there, and Captain Franks and Captain McNair, kind of ferried us through that process. But I had proposed a vehicle that I wanted you to keep your vehicle. There was tremendous outrage and questions from fellow board members about IRS ramifications, and would you have to report that as income because you're no longer the public safety director. Now you have a car, very nice car, lights and sirens, and you have some of your, well, I'm going to save the balance of this for a later discussion, but we have tremendous problems in the department. We have had some turnover with the union there. There's some deep frustration. There's frustration about, frankly, Director Bassett's presence in the station. Although there's, comments about you and your directorship, Mr. Supervisor. You were known to know everybody in your department. You routinely went through the department, and you knew all of your employees. You talked to all of your employees. You made a point to be there as the contract requires, which is Monday through Friday during business hours. And there's some growing complaints as this contract made its way to the board table about, one, presence at the station for the director, use of the vehicle and the fuel, and I mentioned to Clerk Berry today, these are all very easy things to verify, but is the vehicle that's afforded the director a vehicle that he's able to use wherever, whenever? If he travels with his family out of state, is that acceptable? Does the township pay the fuel? Or do we know these things, and do we monitor, or do you monitor? And in terms of the contract, it seems very, very generous and a significant increase over and above what we've afforded union staff. And I would like to see a little bit more review from a performance standpoint, not just a language standpoint. And I don't know what that process looks like, but I can't support this, and I would like to see what we're doing a little bit deeper on your email in terms of how you intend to create some parity in terms of the core of the contract, and yet still recognize the different needs and bargaining interests in special assignments. There's no way to compare other positions like the human resource director or finance director in terms of needing a one-year severance package. I don't know how that becomes a part of the contract language. So overall, I think there needs to be a little more review of performance expectations, and I'd like to know specifically on the vehicle. It's not something that I had ever really considered until the agenda was posted and the contract was posted, and there's some I think legitimate concerns about the generous nature of this contract, and I'd like to see a little bit more. I can't support it.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm wondering if I don't necessarily disagree with the proposals. Some of the ideas, some of the questions, I think, are good ones that deserve some answers. But I also have a concern. I think there's some other, we have some other salaried people who will be negotiating a contract as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Could we perhaps delay that so that they can be done together? Is there a reason that just two of them were separated out?
Yeah, my intent was there's so many differences between the 7 that are there. Some of them, as I spoke in the email, some of them are ingrained in labor agreements that either changed or no longer exist. And this was an effort to not only remove some of that, those commitments that either the bargaining unit had changed or the benefit had been altered. So this was that effort. And I think as much as I tried to individualize these and make them separate, I don't think I can get there. It's just there's too many nuances and differences between each position. and
mean,
from where
and-
they originated from. Where, some of them are historical employees and internal that kind of made it up to contract employees, and then other ones came in from the outside with no burden. I think we're getting there, we're getting in the right step, and again, that's why I presented these two alone. I think these are the key ones, but I don't think we'll ever get to where you get to remove all of those, the inference to other bargaining units and benefits that they have.
Okay, but if I'm understanding what you're saying, these two were separated because they made very, very distinct. When you read the old contract and the proposed contract, there are
That is correct.
a bunch of the items were eliminated, references to things. I understand that. But I'm really thinking dollar amount more than anything for the others.
The dollar amount is commensurate with what what the compensation package for these two individuals is comparable to what our community and the other department heads comparable size are earning.
Sure, not an issue there. That's, I understand that. But could we, I'm just wondering if we could have the other department heads' contracts, if we could see them all so that we are looking at a dollar amount.
I don't know if the other ones are going to make those alterations, or their contracts are differently framed to where they may be very comfortable after tonight with just living with what they have.
But there is a reference to, they would be getting a raise though, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we would still know the dollar amount.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at, the total dollar package.
Correct.
Yeah.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I appreciate the two contracts coming forward. I think that we may have had some circumstances even occur recently whereby, to Trustee Vosberg's point, to understand the full dollar value of, or the full dollar amount will be for all of our contracted employees, I think perhaps we may have maybe some other ones to consider, and I like the idea of bringing parity in terms of their structure. I understand that there's different nuances within the particular tasks and assignments, but I think there may be a value there to kind of looking at all of them and giving them a certain structure and then making the various adjustments as you've indicated. But I think that they could at least have the same, if they all have the same kind of bones to move forward, I think it would be helpful for us to understand that in terms of its totality. I myself would really appreciate perhaps even a 2-week postponement on this item, just so that we can consider some of these other ones and work some things out.
The other ones are not to this point. The other ones that I've enumerated in there are not to this point to where they were presentable. And some of them, again, have certain nuances that again, there are benefits that we've got out of these two proposals. There are benefits. Did their compensation extend for a year severance? Yes. But in return, we also gained an ability to separate very clean and very distinct. Should that arise.
I understand. I just think there's a benefit. There's no expiration date on any of these contracts as far as I'm aware. I just think there may be a benefit also to starting them all at the same time, concluding them at the same time, so that we're not piecemealing them together in the future on and on. So again, I would just ask, and I'd make a motion to ask for a postponement of these two contracts. I don't know if 2 weeks would be enough, or if you're saying they're not ready, perhaps a month, and postpone them to the May 21st board meeting date. I'd make that motion if I have, Mr. Supervisor.
Clerk Berry, I'd like to support your motion with a friendly amendment request, and that is taking into account the supervisor's concerns. I would ask for an indefinite postponement or a postponement until such time that the supervisor is comfortable in bringing all of the contracts forward to at least look at. And I would also point out, Mr. Supervisor, that one of the biggest contracts that is probably of particular benefit to you would be the fact that you don't have a human resource director. So you're attempting to resolve what would be, 7 or 8 contracts that are wildly, the disparity is, as you pointed out, I wasn't in favor of 7 identical contracts, because I do agree with you that they have different interests and there are different concerns. But I think bringing them together to do a compare and contrast and make sure that we have the, as you said, the bones, I think that we should at least look at all of them from that vantage point. And I really don't, sorry, you have a look at, you had something? Oh, okay. I was interested in seeing these 2 contracts separated for the reasons that you mentioned, and that was specifically as it relates to the severance package. There was absolutely no way I'm going to support a severance package of a year for somebody who isn't in the political crosshairs the way that these 2 are. I don't understand the give back that we get, like the great gift that we get in approving these contracts now, because as it sits in terms of comparables, I don't think we're out of line with what we're compensating them now. And I don't see any need, unless you know something I don't, but from a performance standpoint, like I don't see them separating with us or us being dissatisfied with them where we would need to clean up the at-will portion, tonight. I think that we could take a look at whatever it is that we want to do with the core function of the contract and put some, I don't like also in perpetuity contracts. Like there's no begin date, there's no end date, there's no, so for a whole host of reasons, I think we need to do more work on the contract, but I do appreciate the fact that just putting it on the agenda has opened up a few areas that I would like some answers to, because as you pointed out in the contract, the current contract requires under the compensation portion, the township vehicle, the directive is that it must follow all the directive of the township's driver safety and vehicle use policy. I want to know if that includes personal use out of state. Is the township vehicle in another state while the employee is on a vacation? Is that an expense that the township residents pay for? What is the gas and fuel situation for that vehicle? That is something that I'd like to know. And then in terms of oversight and amount of time actually in the township, who monitors that? And do we have any kind of timesheets, or do we know with any certainty how many hours the residents are paying for in terms of service? I don't see any of that, outlined in the contract, and as recently as it was posted, members of that department have contacted me and said, hey, wait, what about, and I was reminded, your mentor, guy that I had great respect for, fired your former boss, terminated him for connecting his township-owned or township-used vehicle to his personal boat trailer. Now we have a situation where just a few contracts later, we're allowing out-of-state use, allegedly. I don't know if it's fact, but that's what was reported to me. And I'm wondering what's going on there. So I would like some answers to those, and I would like to support your motion to postpone. I would just ask that it be until such time that we have a good read on all the contracts.
Any further discussion?
So just to answer the question on whether I will amend my motion, I would entertain amending the motion to postpone indefinitely, but I really want to strenuously say that I think it's very important that these get done as soon as possible. I don't want this to be drawn out forever and ever and ever. I think we need to get solid contracts in place. So when it's postponed indefinitely, to me, I would really expect to have these back at the board table in as short a period of time as possible. But I understand why the request, and if it's a matter of that, and I will amend my motion to say postpone indefinitely.
I'm not going to promise when it's going to return, so the indefinite part I'm good with.
Okay.
Would you become?
No, I'll sit down with these employees, but I don't know where this is going to go. As I said, there's too many different layers to it.
I would just like to offer.
I'm good with indefinite.
Okay.
Ed? Further discussion, trustee Domingue?
You know, the fire chief and the director are on call 24/7. And every one of us up here gets updates, middle of the night, weekends. So they know what's going on. They keep us informed as board members before we get calls from the public, which is a great asset. And I think they do a great job. I've worked with them up here. David and Hank, you guys are the liaisons. They're doing a great job over there. And look at the situations that they have handled in the last couple of years, between the homicide on Hooker Road, the incident we had a week and a half ago. They do a damn good job. And compared to other chiefs' contracts, they're right in line with everybody else that I've seen on other departments. And granted, I'm not a chief, but I know what a lot of my counterparts are making. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Mr. Supervisor, I know we got rounds, but he addressed a specific issue that I had, and I just wanted to point out to you, I agree with you, and I get the emails and text messages on Sunday night and Saturday night, and I know that Director Bassett makes sure that we're informed. My only point to you is that's not what the contract says, and it specifically articulates that the position is a salaried exempt position with no overtime. You take the job knowing that it is not a 9 to 5, but the important section under item 2, hours of work, is that it is expected that the employee will perform their duties during normal business hours Monday through Friday for 40 hours each week. And I'm not saying in any way that he's not doing that. Well, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you. Because when you post a contract, it's okay. I mean, I'll give you an answer, and I'm not getting personal or animated by it. I'm saying to...
That's all you're doing.
By not agreeing with you, I understand that you define that as division, but I'm an autonomous representative of the taxpayers, and I'm pointing out to you in a non-personal way, when you posted this contract online, you have people in that department that point to not seeing him. And I didn't want to turn this into a public performance evaluation, but that is a problem for me. For
you.
Yeah, and I'm just saying.
Not here. He is functioning, he is performing.
I make no.
He is earned. What you are creating is division. This is what you do and what you want to do.
You're making it personal, and you're getting.
I apologize for
but you don't
interrupting.
have
Please
to,
continue.
No, it's okay. But like, there's a debate that needs to be able to be had without you attaching personal motives to it. You don't know. That's your opinion. That's your opinion. But I'm saying to you, when I have conversations with members of that department that say he's not here, that's a problem for me. And if I'm supposed to keep that quiet during a discussion about contract, when the contract says that he performs his duties 40 hours per week, I think it's perfectly appropriate to give voice to the officers that approached me. And just so you know, I have deep friendships with administration in that department. I wouldn't even dare to talk to them because, Mr. Supervisor, if they're seen with me, they have a target on their back from you. You're a very vindictive person, and you've gotten us way off track. This is a contract issue. Let's focus on the contract,
please
which is
continue.
all I'm
Are
doing.
your comments done?
Yes,
Done with
sir.
your comments? Any further comments? Any further comments? There's a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Joseph, to delay this indefinitely. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Domingue.
Nay.
Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Supervisor Kersten.
No. There's a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Domingue, to approve item 10H. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Yes.
Trustee Domingue.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
Absolutely no.
Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Clerk Berry, no.
Item fails. Item 11, addendums. There are no addendums. Item 12, public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit. The floor is open. Floor is open.
I think everybody in the audience is kind of confused as to what that was. Did it fail? Thank you. A couple of things I wanted to talk about tonight. The first one is both of these presentations on redoing this building and then redoing the police department building. If I remember, they started out basically, the building's old, it needs repair. Somehow that went from needing repair to redoing the whole building. It initially was the air conditioning wasn't right. I remember the photoelectric grids on the roof didn't work, and we could repair that and save on electricity. There's some other things that, and we went from probably maybe $1 million to $6 million, at least in this building. And I'm looking, what did you gain? You look at that, nothing really changed. You modernized it. You bought new furniture. You changed some things around here. There's nothing that improved the workers' disposition. You're not going to get any more work from them. Probably be cooler in the summertime. But you could have done that with $1 million. I don't understand how that went. It's almost like, you know, what was the old expression? You can't put paint on the pig's ear. You're doing that in this one. There's nothing to gain. The same thing with the police department. They had a structural problem. They went from a structural problem to a portrait building, and there's nothing to gain. Spending probably an additional $6 million, $7 million between the two of them, and there's nothing gained by the citizens. It's our tax money going out there. The only thing you're missing is a statue of yourself outside in front. That'll probably come next. This is totally ridiculous the way you're spending money. There's no rhyme nor reason to it. The other thing I wanted to mention, in the paper, The Voice this last week, they had the picture of where the new sewer line is going to be to 26 Mile Road. It was hard to depict because the picture was blurry, couldn't make out all of the street names. But it was mentioned tonight, the one exemption, the zoning change that the individual will be able to take advantage of the fact that he's going to be able to tap into that sewer line. And he's doing it at the expense of everybody else that's paying for it now. He's not paying for it. And I think the same thing will hold for your property that you bought. If you develop that, will you tap into that property, that sewer line? I'm sure that's going to happen. And you kind of wonder why that sewer line went that way, or why it even happened at all. Yeah. Pardon me? The property in the back, you tap into existing sewer line if you develop that property.
It's already there. It's nowhere near your property that you're referencing. The sewer property, nowhere near it. Are we debating residents now?
No. Go ahead, time's up. Time's up.
Okay.
Christopher Perrick, Chesterfield Township. By some of the votes today, apparently most of the board is fully educated themselves on what they were voting for, so I appreciate that. I started coming about a year ago to become more educated, and I really would like to see some dialogue back and forth, questions and answers. A month ago, I asked a question when it was voted to purchase Sugar Bush Elementary school, and I asked who wants to buy the school. I still have not gotten an answer of who wants to buy the school. The board members that voted for that probably were educated as to who wants to buy the school. So I'd appreciate an answer for that tonight. Everything I've seen publicly about who wanted to buy the school was 2 residents out of a couple dozen that spoke at this podium. And that's the only thing I've ever seen publicly about who's interested in purchasing the school as far as residents go. So an answer to that would be great. Appreciate it.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. All I can say is you guys are dangerous, reckless, and you can't govern. And when I say you guys, I'm talking about the supervisor, Treasurer Elliott, Trustee Vosberg, and Trustee DeMink. Operation Clean Sweep, which consists of a new supervisor, treasurer, and 2 trustees, has begun. I encourage all residents, you have till April 23rd, 4 p.m. to put in and to do your civic duty and run for a board position. I'm disappointed that the stacking on the bill run and the amounts that went over the 5,000 didn't get addressed, because it was definitely stacking and proper policy and procedure was not followed. Supervisor Kersten, your answer was a BS answer that you gave. In the private sector, you, along with a couple other of your enablers, would have been fired. You don't follow proper procedures on anything. Anything over 5,000 needs board approval. The 25% fee is ridiculous. The residents are getting goosed. The residents have been getting goosed for the last 4 years with the sidewalk project. Treasurer Elliott, I've asked you many times how many delinquent tax notices went out, and you still haven't answered that. And how many incorrect winter tax bills for 23 went out? I still haven't gotten an answer for that. Now, that should be a simple answer. I mean, supposedly you're the treasurer. Easy questions. And the one thing that I don't understand too is Supervisor Kersten, on your Facebook page, okay? And it's gone to the Supreme Court, and I will be challenging it. So if somebody posts something that you don't like on there, you can't take it down. Too bad. You're an elected public official. You're not the only one that does that. Treasurer Elliott does it too. You guys still, almost 4 years into here, you still don't understand what your duties are as a public elected officials, but we'll deal that out in court. And then as far as the denial for the public safety director and the fire director, you know, in the private sector, nobody gets a 1-year severance package. You know what you get at most? 30 to 60 days in unemployment if you qualify. A 14% pay raise? Ridiculous. The personal vehicle isn't new, Trustee Joseph. It's been in the bill run for a minimum of 2 years. It's a $800 or $900 fee that the residents pay every month. Thank you.
Okay, I was just curious about the work being done off of Jefferson, Meldrum, and Roselawn from Semco. Our street, there was a replacement of old gas lines through all of our streets. And though that's great, it's at no cost to the residents. We purchased our home in 2020. And when we purchased it, there was an SAD created for Roselawn to be a part of the Macomb County Reconstruction Project for crushing and reshaping the street. and the regrading of ditches and culverts. That cost my neighbors $240,000 split between 28 residents. Now, Mr. Kersten, I know we've talked about this time and time again, but in talks with Mitch as well, my issues have always been with grading. Now that the Semco people came out and did all the new lines, they've come in and destroyed the ditches that we are currently still paying on. I'd like to know who is going to come back through and fix the grading issues, as flooding is a huge problem for us. We were told that half of Roselawn drains uphill. Though I have a hard time believing that, I do see now that there are areas that water is not going to possibly drain uphill with all the damage that they've done. So I was just wondering who would be responsible for that. Thank you.
Janice Young, I just have a quick thing. I was talking with a resident unrelated to sidewalks, but it got me to look at this homeowner's tax bill on the BSA website, and they had a charge on their tax bill, SD Zone 2, which indicates it was a sidewalk zone replacement in Zone 2. It was only for a partial charge, and the resident didn't know what it was for. They were under the impression that the bill had been paid. So I came to the township to get some information for myself, and I stopped at the treasurer's office, and they gave me some information about that resident's tax situation on that sidewalk. And they informed me that the resident's bill was marked paid in full in October of 2022, but they still had a charge of $36.91 showing up on their 2023 winter tax bill, which appears to be one installment payment of their full amount of their sidewalk replacement from 2022. So I just want to give a heads up to the treasurer's office that there may be mistakes being sent out on that, and residents that are coming up on the Zone 4, just be aware of that. If you're on the payment situation, payment plan, if you pay in full, just make sure you watch your tax bill to make sure there's an additional charge there. Thank you.
James Locke, Chesterfield Township. This is a quite informative meeting here tonight. Some of the members of this board I'm not satisfied with. Others are trying to do the best they can. I urge everybody that's watching this at home, because it's being televised to them, to please get out and vote this fall, especially at the primary election in August. We have to get some people out. We have to have some people vote. This is important. This township cannot continue on like it is now, just spending money, spending money, spending money. I know you got little bits of money coming in here, coming in there, this grant, that, all kinds of things. But it's not enough to cover what you guys are spending. You need to slow down. Supervisor Kersten, I really think you're a bully. You really are, the way you talk to your fellow members on the board here. No place else would anybody talk like that. You need to take a look at yourself, the way you're running this township. It just can't continue. People in other parts of this county are starting to look at what's going on here. You're not going to continue doing what you're doing. You're going to lose some of the respect you have. You've gained some respect out there, yes, but you're losing it fast. You need to check yourself. Thank you.
All right, Mike Horton. Just want to say I hope everyone had a good Easter holiday, and I hope everybody had a good time watching the Great Celestial event yesterday. I had the benefit of traveling to Indiana to see Totality, and it changed me. Something I hope every human gets a chance to see once in their life. Aside from that, we see tonight, again, divisiveness. Not just, when politics is discussed amongst people, it can get heated. It can get very impassioned. It can get to a point of we drive our egos before our ideals. And in doing so, it can create a situation that seems to strive on animosity or more or less antagonistic attitudes. But overall, it can also craft good solutions. Unfortunately, that rarely ever happens in this board. And it seems to only be this board. Like, I don't even see this being as bad in places like Lansing or even DC. For some reason, this board has significant problems with each other and with the members of the audience. And I don't understand that the issue at hand here is trust, whether it be with yourselves or with the rest of us. That's what it's all about. Trust. Trust has to be earned. It has to be something you build up over time. Just because you have a title doesn't mean you automatically have a person's trust or the community's trust. It has to be something you earn through your actions, through living up to your word, through being honest, by being a hard worker, by being committed to what you stand for. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. That is a key component here, trust. And the fact of the matter is, not an opinion, a fact, is that the community distrusts the board. Not every board member, but the board as a whole, in its current standing, has the community's distrust. That is undoubtedly the fact of living here in Chesterfield. No one trusts this government. And it's a real sad fact because local government is the most important component of politics here in this country, how we operate on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Mike Rayner, Jack Grove Lane. I'm gonna have to start coming in later. Janice, I think that's the right idea. Come in after it's gone on for a couple hours. Because by this time, I'm a nervous wreck. I come in kind of ready to go, ready to be whatever, and then by now I'm just going nuts. My vote, my voice. I could really sum up everything right there. I can't take all this stuff. So my vote will end up being my loudest voice. But I will aggravate things a little bit more by bringing up what I haven't for a while, and that's the workers that come to town to work our industrial area west of Gratiot for wages that obviously don't buy an SUV. They need the bus. And that always creates a lot of worry. Well, I've been talking to SMART and MDOT because there are about 3 or 4 bus stops between Cotton and 23. And so they're gonna be going across the street to work. So, yes, so they end up jaywalking because, they don't wanna walk all the way down to 23 where there's a light or all the way down to Cotton, so they jaywalk. So I've been talking to MDOT and SMART about getting in a lighted crosswalk. Ooh, boy, that's one to be nervous about, right? It's better than having people killed or injured by jaywalking. So anyway, I'm working on that. Another thing, today I just happened to run across a county truck. I was going to my community, and I was looking at all the water that lays there. And so there's a county truck, and I stopped the lady, and I said, can I ask you a few questions? And as it turned out, she was a 25-year veteran of the county who happens to work on water issues. So the one thing I want to make sure I get in is, as I mentioned to her, well, it was obvious that when I'm in Chesterfield, she said, you know, Chesterfield is way behind staying on top of their water issues. In fact, she said they're calling us all the time about water issues, and we have to remind them that, no, it's your issue, it's not the county's issue. So there is a distinction there that I don't think we always recognize. Another thing I have to mention real quickly, I love this one. You know, we have, I don't know what that stuff is we're always talking about, we're killing it with Roundup and everything. So I was asking her about that. I said, what's the best remedy for that? And I said, a lot of people, you know, we want to cut it down and make it easy. She said, you know, the worst thing you can do is cut it down. And you know why? She said, because you just send those seeds all over the place, thousands of seeds that are on those. So the best answer is a controlled burn.
Thank you, sir.
3 minutes.
Any further comments?
Oh, my.
All right, good evening, Kevin Hustick, Chesterfield Township. I'm going to completely shift gears from everything that's been talked about tonight. So one of the first meetings that I came to, you know, I heard one of the residents speak about this, and at the time I thought it was just this conspiracy theory that Hall Road or Rosso Highway was going to be shifted and the base was going to extend the runway and all this stuff. And you know, I've read these emails, I've seen stuff in The Voice, and you know, I've never heard really anybody speak at the board table about it. I mean, I've heard some commentary, but I haven't heard a direct, like, here's what we know what's happening. And then I've been copied on some emails as of late, just kind of highlighting what the general or brigadier general at the base kind of announced, all these projects that are forthcoming in the coming years about moving Rosso, the highway, and extending the runway and the ditch and moving the crash zone further into what would be the south end of the residents that live in Chesterfield Township to make way for these potential F-35 planes that some of the folks in Lansing want to get here. And so my request is simple. I would kind of like to see, since the board did something similar for the water meter things, you guys created this resolution that said we oppose having the water meter thing, whatever that fee was. It got attached as a colored paper with my water bill recently. I'd like to see someone on this board bring forward a resolution either way, either supporting this project from the Chesterfield perspective or opposing this project, so that the residents of this community can understand where this board sits. You're either for extending the runway, which will diminish the quality of life of some of the South End residents, just to make the governor and the DOD and possibly county people happy, or do you oppose that to preserve the prosperity of the residents? So I don't have a personal perspective on the matter, but since we could do such a thing for the water rates, I would respectfully request someone at a future board meeting bring forward a resolution to either oppose or support this, what clearly is a true thing that's happening in the coming years, just so that we can send a clear message, because one of the representatives said that the residents should contact the governor. I think we should do the same thing, send a resolution up to Lansing and Federal Department of Defense and let them know we either support this or we don't. So that's my request. I would ask somebody. I know it only takes one person and one supporting vote, so I'd ask someone to do that. Thank you.
Okay, lady that asked about Meldrum, Roselawn, I just talked to a supervisor the other day over there. They didn't do anything last fall because it was too late in the year when they were working, and they couldn't do concrete, asphalt, dirt, or anything like that. They were just finishing up today, doing the rest of the, getting rid of the steel line right there at Meldrum. They told me in the next 4 weeks, they will be back down on Bayshore, Roselawn, and all the streets doing the repairs, because you're not the only one. I know some people that live down there, and they personally called me. So that was quote-unquote from a Semco supervisor 2 days ago. So they're gonna repair everything, but Miller Pipeline was waiting till they finished the entire job, because now they're supposedly gonna go down Salt River. But they told me quote-unquote that. So that's why I wanted to answer it, because I know nobody else talked to the supervisor. I just talked to him the other day. Secondly, the other gentleman who was here who left asked about D.W. Seaton and the roadway and all the potholes. I didn't get the gentleman's name, but he had left years earlier. County roads, we can't touch them. If you want to fix your road, I hate to say it, just like the lady lived there, Roselawn, you had to do an SAD. There's going to be another SAD coming up in front of this board for another street, and they did one on Edgewater. So this problem with it's county roads, they control it, and we don't own the roads. Unless you do an SAD, that's about the only way they're going to get fixed. And lastly, I just want to say my greatest of thanks to everybody on the PD and the FD for the incident that occurred last week. It was unfortunate for the two young gentlemen, the one who didn't survive and the one who survived. I mean, it's all heartfelt. It's a bad situation, should have never happened. But I was down there Friday morning when they were out there searching. In fact, I called Trustee Anderson and gave him an update, and we missed things, but it's not a good scene. I've been out there, my prior career with the county. I've done that, looking for people. They're very fortunate. The guys are great that they found that young man, because sometimes you don't find them right away, especially when it's cold water out. But my heart goes to the poor family. It's a very unfortunate accident, but there's one thing you gotta learn. You gotta respect the water. I've been around here all my life. I grew up on that lake since I was a little child. Wear a life jacket, especially on a jet ski. Even like when I go on a boat by myself, I wear my jacket, because you can fly off. At least with a jacket, it'll keep you afloat. You can tread water so long, but if you're an older guy like me, I'm not gonna stay up that long, but a jacket will keep me up. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just wanted to also say thank you to our police and fire department for all the work that they've done in the last couple of weeks, and continue to appreciate all the communication that we receive. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, Trustee Domink, I'm in total agreement with your kind words. Tragedy, young men. They want us to play happy up here. I think I do. I've never assaulted anyone by name or anything else. My issue is I would like to leave this board in this township in as good fiscal shape as I think I found it back in 2012. My time on the board, I'm looking at, in the recent past, $13 million bond issue in November of 22 to cover a sewer on our eastern boundaries. That's not going to benefit you, only developers. Taking $11 million sewer from the county that, they're giving to us, and you'll get to pay for it. That outstanding building up the road here, going to become the community center, $2.9 million to start with out of ARPA money, and how many more million to get it functional. Not including the boat docks and everything else, anything less than $1 million. I could go on with a list. I'm going to have to reconfigure it sometime, but I think it's fair to assume that this board majority in 18 months has probably approved over $30 million primarily in non-essential expenditures. I know there's been some grants covering it, but that's a lot of cash, and you know who's going to pay for it. In the real world, I would hope that this board in its entirety would adopt a moratorium on discretionary spending until after November 20th to allow that board to kind of reconfigure things here and see where we're at. Final thing, longtime township resident Joe Miller passed away this past March 24th, 2024. Joe honorably served in the United States Air Force during the Korean and the Vietnam Wars. Until recently, Joe was an active attendee at our board meetings, often sharing his wit and wisdom with those in attendance. Rest easy, Joe.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Trustee Anderson, for the update on Mr. Miller. I hadn't heard that. And you're right, he was a fixture at our board meetings for years and years and years, and sad to hear that he passed. Attempting to try to answer a few of the questions. The question about early on about the bill run and the stacking, as I understood it, the bills were separated over that this was a contract that was approved by the board, and this was the annual fees associated with each department. So it was separated on the bill run by department to demonstrate where each one of these contracts went. It did, I believe, comply with the purchase policy on the original approval of the contract, and this was just the execution of that. So I do have a number of issues with the bill run. I won't normally pull it. I'll just vote no. Because it's not worth, you know, the friction that we get. And even if you try not to make it personal and just debate an issue, you get attacked for, you know, being in disagreement. I don't know the rules anymore because it seems as though the chair of the meeting can arbitrarily inject his opinion on any comment, although we have rounds and, you know, each buddy takes a turn. If he doesn't like something, it is a rebuttal, and you're not, it's, I understood personal. There was nothing personal here. This was a debate about a contract, not an individual. I like Director Bassett, love Chief Miller, have no issue with that, but a precedence-setting contract is problematic. We need to follow rules, and when you post a contract online and other employees say, well, wait a minute now, that seems the different contract than the one I recall, it's worth pointing out in the discussion. So I agree wholeheartedly with Trustee Anderson. I don't know where the money's coming from. I really don't. Tens of millions of dollars in, as he indicated, discretionary spending. Some of these are not life or death decisions yet. We're borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And so this idea, when I asked about the general fund, can it sustain? You talked about $271,000 extra. I'm talking about the $1 million worth of debt for the next 20 years just on the bond repayment. That's a fixture in the general fund. Plus you bought a building that is in need of millions of dollars of repair. So what could we have done differently? What about sidewalks and lights and places where people get killed because pedestrians are not seen? How much time do I have, like 5 seconds? So how we spend the money is really, you know, at the core of this. And lastly, I do have I'll answer your question, Mr. Hustic, about the Selfridge. There have been people advocating for the township. There have been others selling it out. I'll tell you about it after. Just like to close the meeting with my neighbor was 101st Airborne. He's was the first guy to greet me when I moved into the township about 30 years ago. And when I went outside today, there was a poster on his front lawn that said, "Congratulations on 75 years." And I would like to congratulate John and Marie Beverly, the greatest neighbors that I've ever had, on their 75 years of marriage, a true testament to commitment, and just one of the many reasons that Chesterfield is a wonderful place to live. And I've been fortunate to be his neighbor, their neighbor, for over 30 years, and I wish them the best on their 75th wedding anniversary. Thank you.
Treasurer Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just to say that, first of all, the presentation that came to the board tonight was very good presentation. However, I do agree that when the agenda items do come to this, are posted, they do need to have a better summary, and they have to be thought about what is it, the information that this board needs in order to make those decisions, and those need to be posted at that time. So there is that is a very legitimate request, and I am asking that we see that. going forward on agenda items. I also would like to thank the Public Safety Director and the Fire Chief for the work that they do here. I'm sorry that this contract discussion did turn personal, and it should not have been. It is something, there are some legitimate questions and points of view and things that need to be addressed and can be addressed without talking about personal feelings or rumors that we're hearing. I'm hoping at this point that we can sit down, and I would ask for the public safety liaisons to put in an email the requests and the suggestions that they make, and so that we can get this work done. And then I'd also like to see what the other contracts that we're looking at, I know that there are nuances, but what can we put together that is similar, what is it that is, where's the parity? And so I'd like to see us work on that as a board and as a team, and I believe that that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I just wanted to clarify that most of when I talked about the election commission meetings, the public accuracy tests, all of those things that the public can view with regards to elections, most of those things do occur during the day. So just wanted to clarify when I said we're having a meeting on Thursday, they're never in the evenings. There's other meetings that take place in the evenings. The election commission meets usually at 10 a.m. in the morning when we do meet. But again, check the agendas for that online if you are interested in that. Also, the public accuracy tests are typically in the morning as well. The public accuracy tests and the election commission meetings are now taking place at the community center. So that's where all of the election equipment is stored now, and that is where all of the activity occurs there. So also wanted to clarify that for those who are interested, you don't come to the township offices. Again, it'll say that in the agenda notice, but please just be aware of that if you are interested in seeing any of those things. Also, the upcoming election in May is for Lance Cruz and New Haven school districts only. Anchor Bay does not have an election in May. So if you live in the Anchor Bay school districts, you do not have an election. We still have folks that are calling saying, I didn't get my ballot. Okay, then we find out that they live in the Anchor Bay school district. However, if you live in the Lance Cruz School District or the New Haven School District and you have requested a ballot, either by requesting to be on the permanent ballot list or by requesting an absentee ballot by an application, and you have not received that, please contact the clerk's office. We can track your ballot. You can also track your ballot online as well through MVIC, which is the Michigan Voter Information Center, so that we can make sure that you do receive your ballot. Again, if you are on the permanent ballot list, which is that new list, that is not forwardable, okay? And we can't send it to another address unless you indicate that. So that's the other thing that is affecting folks this time around as well. So please, if you have not received a ballot that you know you've requested, please contact the clerk's office and we can track that down for you. We have mailed out approximately 4,000 absentee ballots. And we have received in approximately 1,000, so there are still quite a few out there. But we want to make sure that everyone in those school districts knows where to vote, how to vote, and we will help you in any way that we can to facilitate your right to vote. Thank you. 14A is to enter into closed session to consider the purchase of real property pursuant to Section 8(1)D of the Open Meetings Act. Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to enter closed session to consider the purchase of real property pursuant to Section 8(1)D of the Open Meetings Act.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye.
Closed session at 10:17 in North Amherst.
Have a motion return to open session. Supervisor Kersten will make it. Is there any support?
Second.
Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry, there is an action item. You have the wording for it?
Yeah, we just need to take a
Wait, we gotta call-
roll call to
I'm sorry.
return to open
Roll
session.
call and open.
You're right. You're right. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Demink? Trustee Vosberg? Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
And when you're ready, you have the motion.
Yes. We're re-entering at 1:29.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the Township Supervisor to sign the purchase agreement to purchase real property as discussed in closed session.
Just, if I could get clarification on the motion, this is, do we need any additional information regarding the contingency on the DNR?
No, it's in the agreement already.
Got it.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye. Adjournment, is there a
Motion to adjourn.
Demink, supported by Kersten. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, 10:30.
That's what I got.